So we have everyone here. It's Mayor Pro Tem.
Looks like she's having connecting to audio, but in a minute.
Know the bathroom and back right here.
We'll get started. We'll get started in just a second, everybody. I thank you very much for your patience. Let's go ahead and get started. She'll be doing this in a second, I'm sure. I need to read a legal announcement first related to the executive session that we just come out of. The time is now 7:11 p.m. and the executive session has been concluded. The participants in the executive session were Mayor Pro Tem Jocelyn Farrow, Trustee Ted Elson, Trustee Paula Williams, Trustee Tanya Dottie, Trustee Glenn Delman, Trustee Greg Edding, Utilities Director Aaron Kaplan, Attorney Brandon Dittman, Administrator Victoria Simonson, and County Clerk Dolores Vasquez, and Planner David Kim. For the record, if any person who participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into executive session occurred during the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meetings law, I ask that you state your concerns for the record. Okay. So we already did our roll call and the Pledge of Allegiance. So now, as we do every meeting, I'll read the land acknowledgement. We must acknowledge with respect as non-native people that the land on which we stand, live, and learn is the traditional territory of the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho peoples. We also recognize the 48 contemporary tribal nations that are historically tied to the lands that make up the state of Colorado. All right, we have Mayor Pro Tem, there she is. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I motion to approve the agenda.
Any discussion on the agenda? Okay. I'll call for vote.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Okay. So for our audience business, we will take a reflective moment of silence. Thank you, everybody. I'd like to thank you all for being here. I think this is about as crowded as we've seen chambers since before COVID. And so I really appreciate that you've taken the time to come tonight. We'll move into audience business, and I'll just kind of let you know how it goes in case you haven't done this before. And I see there's a bunch of people on the phone too. Clerk Vasquez has a sign-in sheet there.
Everything get it?
And if you didn't sign in and you decide you want to speak anyway, just wait till the end and let me speak. So you will come up to the podium, state your name and address, that's just for the record. And then you'll each have 3 minutes. Yep. And Administrator Simonson's going to be using a timer there. So when the timer dings, that means that your 3 minutes are up. The board doesn't respond to public comment. So if we're not saying anything, that's why. I think that the agenda item that most of you probably want to talk to is later on in the meeting. You're totally welcome to hang out and watch the meeting until that happens, or you can go grab a drink and watch it on Zoom or YouTube. So we do have one public hearing tonight, and that is regarding an ADU at 244 Evans Street. So if you would like to speak about that item, that's not a part of audience business. There'll be an open hearing. Just it's the first item of business that we're going to get to after in the agenda after audience business. So
Mayor, Mayor Reagan, we
Yeah.
also have a public hearing on the ordinance regarding short-term rentals. This is a slight correction.
Oh, thank you, thank you. So, yeah, we have another public hearing on the second reading of the ordinance. So, so absent those two, you can talk to us about anything you want. We're gonna go in the room first, and then we'll go online to the folks online if they want to talk. So anybody have any questions before we get started?
Mayor Reagan, did you mention the time limit?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good.
I'll let you in about 3 minutes. So we're going to start audience business tonight with Justin Dulles, who came here to introduce himself to the community of the board. So go ahead. Welcome.
Yeah, hello, thank you. Thanks for inviting me to meet everyone in the community. Yeah, my name is Justin Doles. I started on January 17th. The new town engineer and project manager. So I'll be assisting the Tracy and Aaron with the town with various projects and helping out with technical needs as well with Aaron and Dave and Public Works. So yeah, prior to this, I primarily worked in the private sector and consulting. Spent the last 8 years working on the US 36 project, the consortium from Denver to Boulder. Then prior to that, working on various highway and development projects. So went to school at CSU, grew up on the western side of the state. If you've ever heard of Cedar Ridge, pretty small little community, but yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell. So yeah, thanks again for having me.
Thank you. We're happy to have you. Glad you're here. And we'll be seeing you around.
Yeah, definitely.
We're working with you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Clerk Vasquez.
The first one on here is Ian Brighton.
Let me turn on the mic too.
Yep, he's just got a press.
Everyone. My name is Ian Brighton. I live at 322 Atlantis, right down the street. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to us, and I appreciate how many of my fellow neighbors showed up tonight. So I also wanted to thank Mayor Pro Tem and Mayor Rogan, Mayor Pro Tem Jocelyn and Jocelyn Farrell for coming out and listening to us at Leaf on Super Bowl Sunday. We had 20 people from the neighborhood show up, which I think is incredible given how narrow of an area we canvassed. Haley Sue helped make the door knockers, and me and my 2 boys helped hang them, and it was good to get out in the community and really try to advocate. We were very neutral about what the meeting was about. We did not advocate for a certain plan to move forward, but at the meeting that we had, 19 of the 20 residents at the meeting opposed the Moon Earth. I've since spoken with the one that was in favor of the Moon Earth last night. She called me and wanted to talk about it. And it turns out she actually does oppose the Moon Earth on Railroad, but she supports the Moon Earth in residential areas. And I think that's an important distinction, is we don't oppose the Moon Earth idea. We like the idea of shared streets just in the right context. And we feel that Railroad is an access street. It was designed to be an access street, and it should remain that way, because if you change it, you put traffic pressures onto the residential street. And that's really why so many of us have so many concerns. So I wrote a few questions. I'm not sure how much time I have left, but I'll just go through these. These are just questions that I have, and I would love to hear an answer from the board. First of all, and I think this is a yes, but I just wanted to start out with, do you agree that residents in our neighborhood ought to have a voice in decisions that impact our safety? Do you also agree with the independent review conducted by Community Cycles that the Moon Earth, if operating correctly, will divert traffic onto residential streets and our streets? And if no, I want to know your reasoning. Have you talked to the consultant about this? Have you gotten information and data that we maybe don't know that tells a different story? But we believe, and we have an independent review saying that it's going to increase traffic on our street. Do you believe a resident who experiences a disability would be made less safe by more traffic on our street? If you believe a resident who experiences a disability would be less safe in a vehicle bike path versus a bike pedestrian path. Thank you for your service to our town. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ian.
Next on is Rhonda Vandenbos.
Hi. Rhonda Vandenbos at 243 Evans Street. I guess I would like to just voice that I would like to see reconsider and do the option 3. Simply just because Railroad Avenue was originated to divert traffic from Evanston Park, and by doing the runoff, it's going to shove it right back on. And we already saw proof of that this summer when Railroad was closed. And we had a lot of delivery trucks and all that stuff just driven down the street. So then after the curb and gutter program, and then you get snow, we're left with a very small margin where pedestrians can walk safely. So I would like beyond the railroad plan and whatever option you decide to go with, we need to continue a community discussion about making a safe pedestrian corridor. And that should be from Railroad, Evans and Park, and probably extending onto the bridge over Second Avenue. Any course that's going to affect the school traffic, the festivarians, and just day-to-day pedestrian traffic. One of my suggestions may have been to changing Evans to a one-way, because since the new pedestrian bridge went in, that curve on that corner of Third and Evans can only fit one car. And so I don't know what the legal codes are for street traffic and that, but clearly 2 cars cannot go down Evans on that corner. So maybe we consider doing some one-ways or something like that. We provided a whole list, maybe we can do a little committee with some ideas of traffic circles, one-ways, repainting crosswalks. Just the other day, somebody knocked over the crosswalk sign, the stop sign on Third and Evans, and left their bumper and their license plate with it. So I hope that was clear evidence that people are blowing through that stop sign. So that's all I have to say, and I hope we can continue further discussions in making a safe pedestrian corridor on those streets. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Michael Grace.
I'm just gonna read something else. Pardon? Yes, Michael Grace, 236 Evans Street. Good evening, and thank you so much for putting this on the agenda tonight to discuss. As you know, we've been kind of squawking for a while, and we really do appreciate that you're taking another look at it. The current plan will not create a traffic problem on Evans Street. Evans Street already has the worst traffic problems of any residential street in Lyons. And it's only expected to get worse as ever increasing traffic through our town intensifies in the future, and parking for the new hotel pushes more and more cars park on our street. This plan will only make that problem worse. When motorists are faced with an option of traveling on a 5-mile-an-hour zigzag road or a 20-mile-per-hour street, it's certain that many will choose the faster route. In this case, that's Evans Street. The fact that this was never considered anywhere in the railroad plan design process is, in my opinion, a failure of planning. I would expect drafting designs that include closing or significantly restricting traffic on a road that has a historic use of the bypass street would include some rigorous analysis, specifically a traffic study to understand the utilization and then analyze it where that traffic is going to go. How many cars use this street? Where are they going to go? Who is going to be affected by this and how? Also, notifying all residents who will be directly affected should be an absolute requirement. None of this was done. You were presented with 4 plans with no neighborhood context, no traffic data, and no safety data. Tonight, I urge you to choose option 3 with a 10 to 15 mile an hour speed limit, which will reduce the impacts on Evans and Park Street. This is an ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure option. The design is pretty much already done. Thank you so much for your service, and thank you for reconsidering this tonight.
Thank you.
And last on here, we have Evan Grace.
Hi, I'm Evan Grace, 335 Evans Street. I'm just gonna speak off the cuff really quickly. I shared an anecdote at our meeting on Super Bowl Sunday about a car coming down Evans Street at about 60 or 70 miles an hour on a Sunday. And it was just a brutal wake up call on how little regard motorists can have when traveling down a residential area. We're speaking about a residential area that is a residential corridor street that is used by pedestrians, dog walkers, children, some with disabilities. And then tonight, when I got home from work, I saw another car come down Evans Street at probably 50 miles an hour at dusk. And there's always pedestrians on Evans Street. That I know that's all totally anecdotal. I live there, I live in a fishbowl, I see the street all day, every day, and I've only seen dramatic increases in motor traffic on Evans Street and oftentimes at reckless speeds. And I know just with basic logic that the lunar design, plan number 2, is going to increase that. Just can't think my way around the way that that's going to work. It is going to discourage motorists from driving down the road, and it's going to encourage motorists to take Evans Street. And my last thought is also, regardless of what plan gets enacted, we could consider signage at the big cluster intersection that indicates people should go down Railroad Street to get to the post office, to get to the library, to get to other points to the west. Because when you pull off of the highway, you're just presented with a bunch of different streets that go anywhere. And you're probably, if you're not from Lyons, you're probably looking at your navigation, and it's probably going to send you down Evans Street. That's at the high speed limit. It doesn't have the jag winter permit. So thank you guys for all your help. Thanks for listening. Thanks for scheduling this. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. Okay. Let's move to the folks on Zoom, and then if anybody in the audience decides that they want to speak, they can go ahead too. Anyone on the Zoom, you can educate. You want to speak by turning on your video camera, raising your hand, saying hello.
Don't see anyone.
We entice anybody else in the audience to come up to the microphone?
The only one who got the memo.
Should have brought some for us.
I'm Kaylee Supinello at 326 Evans. I've been there for 30 years. My house is 103 years old. That block has always had a charm about it. I mean, we are the hub between both a park, Sandstone, the school, the library, the post office. We are this big hub. And right now, there's still somewhat of a term that is about to get run over by people that have no idea. I mean, we still have horse hitches that go down the street. And I would love to see it go one-way east. I would love to see it down to at least 15 miles an hour, so it doesn't read on GPS. I do believe we need sidewalks, but I want to see flagstone sidewalks done properly. I want to see that street. I mean, Laverne's house. For that street has history. And I would like us to be able to keep that feel. I know people walk down the street. But they also wave, and they've also got their dogs and their kids and their bikes. So it is, I mean, I'm on the porch every day. And people need that interaction of a person where you say hello. Or you just have that feeling of home when you walk down the street. So hopefully, while we talk about all this, we can also consider some of the historic passion that I have to keep that street personal. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, last call. For audience business. We'll close audience business, and next on the agenda is the Boulder and Sheriff's report, serving police years.
Not a whole lot, in the last meeting, earlier, I think last week, Crystal, found another graffiti electrical box by, Bond Park, so, it's similar to the last two, so. I got some ideas on that, we'll, talk about flying about that. Just a reminder for all the residents here is, in this last week, especially, it's been crazy uptick in property crimes. We're just getting annihilated. So fortunately here it's been good, but other places not so much, even up in the mountains. So just a reminder for everyone to keep stuff locked, and majority of property crimes is crime of opportunity. So you leave some out in plain view, don't lock your car or house. Leave your keys in your car, people come through, it's gonna be taken. So and then just some stats from last month. In town, we had 150 calls last month, so it's kind of gone down from the previous months. And then traffic starting to pick up through town, and just using the cameras in town. Just on average, the last 4 weeks, about 100,000 cars came through town, just in a week from like Friday early evening to Sunday night. So I would imagine them having those is, seeing how many cars come through. The summer months are probably going to double or triple that. So, and then our hiring is actually going pretty good. So hopefully we can get more of the lines traffic actually be filled. We got a lot coming through, so hopefully it all work out. So we need some more people on the streets, and our FTOs aren't tied up trained people that can actually get out there and do stuff. So since the beginning of the year to the 19th of this month, there's 85 tickets or so written, most of those traffic. Well, that's all I have for the last few weeks.
Questions, comments for sergeant's leaders? Mayor Pro Tem?
Hi, thank you. So I actually do have a question. I was wondering, since we did hear from the audience, and so I'm just going to address it. The stop sign that got, rolled over by chance, did you happen to see that and find the license plate? Maybe we could make that person accountable for that. And if not, I would really like to request that could we have a sheriff hang out in that particular area to start deterring speeders, catching them, especially before summer starts. But then in particular, that's probably an area we need to have some focus on for folks, because it sounds like it's been pretty hellacious.
Thank you for bringing that up. I actually wrote notes down for that, is to send that out to our deputies, and also bring the speed, been wanting to get it out, the speed trailer out. So you guys have a good place to put that. I know it doesn't, it's like slow people down, but at least it shows them their speed. So we have that as well. And I know in the years past, working up here that's always kind of been a thing, especially construction and stuff going on. So That's on my list of things to follow up on, and then actually talk to Rhonda just briefly about the stop sign. I hadn't heard that, and it wasn't in any of our reports. So if you guys see that stuff, please call. I'll give you my phone number when I'm working, but just call our dispatch and get a deputy out there if
Right, I met Officer Gannon out there, so if you wanted the update, I went there Friday and he did catch the person who did it. And the guy, I think, was trying to deny it, but the bumper was there missing from the car and the bumper was sitting. So he said they did catch him and brought him down, and I don't know how much, yeah, I don't know how much detail is going on.
that's the DUI he was telling me about.
That's the.
He's been on our primary traffic guy, so.
They did put an initial cost on it and said to let them know so that we could get reimbursed for repairing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I have just one more question.
All right, go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem. Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, I was just kind of wondering, what would it cost, or perhaps, I know you can't answer this now, but perhaps something that we could look into, where you've got a van with the camera that, you know, flashes and catches people speeding and then sends them tickets. I don't know if that's an option that's available to us as well.
Yeah, and I think a larger discussion has to happen about traffic and speed mitigation. And that'll be part of it. Mr. Dillon?
Director Kaplan, do you know, has stop sign been replaced, because it was not yesterday?
It is.
Yes, we did it this morning today. Yes, we did it this morning.
Okay, so
I did try, but I didn't want to leave a more hazardous, not properly put in sign. And it is a four-way stop there at least. So I tried.
oh, and it's been kind of been. So I have a request, speaking of traffic, and it's 5 minutes a day, twice a day. And that is the traffic on Third from Maine to Stickney. I know Officer Mitch hangs out. He's the SRO for those of you who don't know, the school resource officer, but he hangs out on 3rd Street or on 4th Street, and nobody's speeding and blowing stop signs because they know he's there. But coming around that curve, going toward Main Street on 3rd, I almost get hit regularly when I'm walking there. So
They're done.
yeah, just I mean, just deterrent.
What's the main times for that?
Sorry, it is between 7:56 and 8:03 a.m. and 2:54 and 3:05 p.m.
On Third and Stickney or Main.
Up from Maine up 3rd to Stickney to this, that it's kind of a weird intersection. Yeah,
And is it just people going too fast, or?
They're trying to.
they're trying to get
Oh,
people
yeah.
to school, and so they're going too fast and they're blowing the stop sign. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you guys. All right, take care.
Okay, next up, we have ordinances and public hearings. The first item is a public hearing resolution 2023-09, a resolution of the town of Lyons Board of Trustees approving the conditional use of a detached accessory dwelling unit ADU at 244 Evans Street. Alex is presenting. Good evening, Alex.
Good evening, Mayor Rogan, Board of Trustees. Let me go ahead and share my screen, get my report up. Let's see. All righty, can everybody see that clearly?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Perfect.
That's
So yes,
awesome.
I'm here for resolution number 2023-09, a conditional use for a detached accessory dwelling unit at 244 Evans Street. The applicant Arnold Hayden has submitted for an accessory dwelling unit detached, which had to be reviewed as a conditional use review. Reason why it's being reviewed as a conditional use is because of the simple fact that it is detached. He is in a R2A medium high density residential district. If it was an attached unit, it would be a use by right. But the simple fact that it is detached and it's actually an existing structure, it does require a conditional review. Staff has found that under Article Chapter 7, Section 16-7-30, the conditional use approval review criteria has been met. And Mr. Hayden has brought up very good purposes. This structure is not being used for much of anything. It does have a garage on the main level, which will give adequate parking for if this is approved for the above tenants. All modifications will be done internally. It's going to be 5 walls added, a few doors, and then the basic necessities as far as a sink, toilet, bath, and yeah, again, it's all going to be done interior. All the modifications are in the interior. Utilities will be connected from the primary residence, and again, yes, this would be a use by right if it was attached, but being detached, it's easier as approval. The PCDC has given a recommendation for approval and found that it does align with the comprehensive plan as far as encouragement for more housing. It is just an ADU unit. It's not a dwelling unit of its own, a big house, but it is going to be able to provide additional housing and possibly affordable housing for a couple or just a single individual. But again, this is a very bare bones, simple, create an opportunity. Let me see if I can get this to stop sharing. Pull up one more thing. So here we have, this is in the rear, and it is at the rear yard, and it does have alley access. So going into it, see if I can get a little closer. Oh. Sorry about that. So yeah, so we're just gonna have the entrance here. We're gonna have a bathroom right here on the side, all open space and flooring. Again, it's just gonna be the few walls here. We're gonna have the kitchenette over on this side, couple closet doors, and again, yeah, the bathroom. It's a very simple setup and be able to acquire a couple or a single individual wanting to rent. And that is what I have, and I'm more than open to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for planner painter?
Sure. The PCDC approved it. Was that going to be the unanimous vote? And can you just give us any idea of what they deliberated on? Did they have any concerns?
I'm sorry, Trustee, can you repeat that? I couldn't hear you too well.
Just a question on the PCDC. Did they have any concerns about it at all? What was the summary of their discussion, and what was their vote?
Oh, their vote was for approval, unanimously, and there was no concerns. They were actually excited for this, as well as saying that it was very just simple and a basic ADU for itself. There was no concerns at all, and they were actually more than happy to see a new housing unit come into the community.
I was mentioned in the agenda, looking up the site. Anybody see this? Yeah. I didn't get much out of that.
No, and I asked it to, I mentioned that.
And yeah, and that's fine. That's not the existing structure that is at the tower. What is?
I'm
Just wrong.
asking if you can share it. So, yeah, so maybe you can share the site planner painter. When it uploaded into the packet, and I sent a note about this a couple days ago, you couldn't see it.
Okay, you.
And then, yeah,
I think it was our packet upload. Yeah,
That's fine.
let's see if we can see.
So yes, here we have the door coming in from the exterior on the second floor. Here we have the single bath with the shower, you have full bathroom set, all open ceilings. And then we have just the kitchenette on the, I guess this would be the north side. Am I correct? No, west side building. And again, this is on the second floor, and below we'll have the garage parking on the first floor. And I can pull up a picture as well if you'd like to see the existing structure through a photograph.
Yeah, if you could pull that up while trustee Williams is asking your question, that would be great. Just.
Yeah, my major question relates to that. The fact that we received. I've been doing this for 10 months. But I don't think I've seen another report come to us that felt rather incomplete. I don't really, even seeing the plan there, it's like, I don't quite understand it, plus I don't have any idea what the structure looks like. And I really don't feel like I would be desirous of moving forward with this until I have really more photo information. Whether that's comes to us and we just postpone it to a certain whatever. Just looking through it, it's like, yeah, that actually is not nearly enough at any level for me. And I understand, I mean, if ECDC saying go for it, usually that alone for me is enough to say, okay. But in this case, I feel like you have to do your due diligence as one of the states. I was like, I don't know enough about this to be.
I wonder whether planner painter can provide enough information now for you, or whether you, I mean, if you would like to. David's putting in construction. Yeah, so, you know, if you look at this information, trustee Williams, and you believe you'd be better served by moving it to a date certain, then you can certainly make that motion.
Yeah, that doesn't.
All right, I'm sorry, I wasn't pulling up on the other side. Are you all able to see the picture right here?
So
This is the existing structure.
That's the only angle we have it from. We don't have anything from. I mean, we got it from above, but that was in pixelated.
Let's see if I can.
Trustee Williams, if I may, could you elaborate a bit more on what you would like to see? I can potentially offer some additional information.
The visuals, first of all, so that I have a much better sense of what it is we're doing. And, you know, I know it's not a fair comparison, but I want to, you know, when I compare it to 317 Evans,
Sure.
there I had a very clear picture. Of course, there have been, you know, a lot of changes taking place there as well. But I had a really clear picture of what was taking place. On this one, I do understand it falls within the criteria. But at the same time, I don't. I mean, what is the antenna on the side? What is the exterior of it look like? I just it's just.
Those pictures are not for this project. I pulled those up as well, and I don't know how those got mixed in there, but those are not for this. Yeah, the picture that was supposed to be put in there was the one I showed for my email. Yeah, the one that's in the agenda is the antenna is not a part of this project at all.
Well, there were two that were not yeah, it's rare for me to look at stuff and just kind of be like, okay, that's not enough. So that's how I feel. I'm not sorry.
Perhaps it would be useful for Attorney Dittman to talk about the criteria for approval of a detached ADU.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, let me pull those up for you real quick. They are in the staff report, but I can go ahead and pull those up and go through them real quick. So, oh, did you pull them up on the screen? Thank you. Sorry, I was pulling up on my screen as well. So in 16.730 are the conditional use approval criteria. And then we additionally have an additional review criteria for accessory dwelling units in 16.1070. They are somewhat extensive. I can read through each one of them, you know, directly, or we can just kind of read them together. It's up to you guys. But they are fairly extensive in terms of, really when you look at any sort of conditional use, we are trying to do is make sure that use does not place, burdens on surrounding properties that aren't mitigated through conditions. And that's the basic concept of any conditional use. And so here you can look at whether, the big one always is whether it complies with a comprehensive plan that complies all, other zoning regulations, subdivision regulations, and whether, impacts of that use are minimized through the design. And additionally, aligns, these conditional use review criteria, where we make sure just to, again, really minimize those negative impacts, and that they're architecturally compatible with surrounding areas. And so they're on the staff report. We can put them on screen. I see at least 16730 is up. There are additional ones in 161070. Whatever questions you have, I'd be happy to answer those.
And trustee Edding, I believe, helped write the ADU code and have maybe some context of that as well.
Yeah, when years and years ago, when we did the ADU code, we had to make a decision. Should we attach the ADU and use by right or conditional? Then we have to make the decision, should we detach ADU to use by right or should we do conditional? We elected, and I remember the argument that we'd like the detached ADU to be conditional, so that at least somebody could look at it, PCBC and or the board of trustees, to do exactly what Attorney Dittman said. Is the impact greater on the neighboring properties or on the owner of on the actual property itself? I think that was the main reason we wanted to do conditional and have one person up with that. And so I that was up there, so I can't see it now. But that's exactly what Attorney Dittman mentioned is, does this impact the neighbors greater or the actual landowner? So I think that was the main criteria that people should judge. All that being said, I still support the fact that I think conditional uses on ADU should stop at PCBC. I think they're fine on these things, but that's something for sure.
I will say I did have a list that it was an allowed for 2023.
Okay. Do any other trustees have any questions at this time? Okay, 1 second. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, I have a question. So it looked like, from the staff report and what you said, that everything is modified internally. But there's, what about there's a staircase that's going up? It doesn't look like that there's an entrance to, so is that an external modification that needs to be considered?
Yeah. Great question, Mayor Pro Tem Farrell. The applicant already has a building permit for it. That is completely separate, but yes, that will be bringing up from the entrance of the first floor on the exterior. But it's separate, already has a building permit. It's doesn't involved with this.
Got it. And then my next question is, I think that something like this has to go out to the residents, the neighboring residents, and they have a certain amount of period of time to respond.
Yes, ma'am.
Did any feedback come in? And so was that executed in any feedback?
It was executed, no negative feedback, a couple go-aheads with it, nothing negative. Through all the referral agencies, including 300-foot radius through the neighborhoods.
Okay.
My question.
Did you want to add something?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and trustees. What I'd like to add is a little bit of color from what the PCBC stated during the last PCBC hearing on this topic, which was the previous Monday. One thing that was felt pretty strongly by several PCBC members is that the idea of a conditional use review for detached accessory dwelling units under the current or they feel is an extra burden that might need to be reconsidered, and it should potentially just be a staff level review
such as it is with attached accessory dwelling units. So it kind of speaks to the idea of the components are strong in the code for a staff level review and would eliminate the need for a conditional process that goes through 2 levels of yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Additionally to that, there are specific criteria that I think Attorney Bittner alluded to regarding detached accessory dwelling units. But there's only 3. And that's under 161078. Those are really the important ones that the board should consider tonight. It coupled with a generic conditional use review, but specific to the task at hand tonight, it's these 3 criteria under 161078.
So much. All right, is the applicant here? I see him on the Zoom. You're welcome to make a presentation if you like, or you want me to if you prefer not to.
I have no statements to make. I think it's, I think the PCDC did a great job in working through all the issues.
All right, so I will then open the public hearing if there is anybody who would like to comment on this resolution 2023-09. Now is the time. Please state your name and address for it. Let's see me going. Okay, I'll close the public hearing and I would entertain a motion. Trustee Haji.
Yes, I move that the BOT approve the conditional use of a detached accessory dwelling unit at 244 Evans Street.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, gentlemen. Any discussion? Okay, 480 is proper vote.
Do we have a discussion?
I asked if there was any discussion. I didn't hear anything. Attorney Devin, can I recall the vote so we can have more discussion?
Of course, yeah, of course.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No, it's hard to hear. So I just wanted to say that I'm certainly in favor of this and I'm going to vote in favor of it. But I would like to just recommend that staff make sure that the pictures and, are clear, because it looked like, I think now in hindsight, we were looking at a picture of a corner of the building next to Arn's property. So if we could just make sure that, if this continues to come to the Board of Trustees, that we could have that, since, it's a resolution and not an actual first or second hearing. That'd be great.
Absolutely. I apologize for the inconvenience about that.
Thank you.
Any additional discussion, Trustee Batty?
Yes, I would like to applaud residents like Mr. Hayden for taking the initiative and hearing the call for affordable housing in our town. It is harder and harder to find something that is affordable for single people working in the service industry or teachers or a couple. And I just really want to encourage people who have that space available, who are able to make a few modifications, who have the time and energy to submit this kind of request to do so for the betterment of our community. So thank you, Mr. Hayden, for doing that and taking that initiative. I really appreciate it. We all do.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I'm sure we'll be in discussion.
Yes.
I'm always interested in what is the best possible return on investment, which is almost better. I never thought it was better for us not to be considering this because other things important to us. Then what do you think? I'd love to know what the process says.
You can request an agenda item to discuss it during your testimony report. Okay. All right, anybody else? Okay, we'll call for the I'll call for the vote again. Trustee Dati, Mayor Pro Tem.
And the motion passes all unanimously.
Thank you. Congratulations, Ern.
Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you.
I almost skipped right to page 3 in my agenda. That would shorten the meeting a little bit. Okay, next up, we have second reading and public hearing of ordinance 1140, an ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, amending Article 7 of Chapter 6 of the Lyons Municipal Code concerning short-term rentals. Is there a staff report?
Yes, there is, Mayor and Trustees. So, and as we had on the first reading, this was really a cleanup of the municipal code to try to correct the items that were in there and what type of licensing was going to be documented. So after the first reading, we did review what was listed in the code and made a few other changes where we saw a business license was being requested rather than the short-term rental license. And so we did correct that. The short one-page copy of the changes in code was presented in the packet. And that Attorney Dittman did advise in there under the legal issues that the slight changes were really considered errata and still met with the intent of the first reading.
Any questions for Director Kaplan? All right, I would entertain a motion then.
I think
Trustee Dati?
we're gonna need a public.
Public hearing.
Oh, so
Second reading.
sorry. So sorry. Okay, we will now have a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing. Anybody who would like to speak about ordinance 1140, please make yourself known. Not seeing anybody, so I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion. Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote.
And the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And then we have first reading of ordinance 1141, an ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, amending chapter 13, article 3, section 90 of the Lyons Municipal Code concerning fees for the connection of fire sprinkler or fire suppression systems.
So yes, this one, Mayor and Trustees, was also a little bit of cleanup, but has a little more detail in that it was something you hadn't probably heard about before this. But we do have more and more with new building code requirements for sprinkler systems. A few years back, we did have one residential property outside of town that requested could they have a sprinkler system added, and that does usually require a larger tap to be able to accommodate the sprinkler system. So the municipal code did not have anything about it at that time. We did put some documentation into the code about residential, specifically outside of town. So I wanted to bring this back with a couple of properties. The hotel would need to have a sprinkler system. The multifamily units for the Lyons townhomes will have sprinkler systems. And so I brought it up, had discussion with Longmont, both with regard to our agreement for treated water and with how they handle fire suppression system. In the packet, I did mention that Longmont actually does not have a fee based on the tap size or the actual tap. Their fee is based on the meter. And they don't meter fire suppression system. So anyone getting a fire suppression line in Longmont would not need one because they would not be purchasing a meter. Here we can look at it slightly differently, how we want to handle that. That's still left up to staff and an engineering decision on how the physical connections are made. But I did want to get this started and into the code, since one of the developments moving forward and ready to get their fire suppression system installed. But it was something we want to make sure does keep moving for the protection of the town. And so brought this forward specifically to focus on the fee structure and that we would not be charging fees
Longmont would not be charging us fees for any increases or any new connection for a fire suppression system.
Thank you. Questions for Director Kaplan?
The issue is purely fees, it's not water rights at all.
Did you work together using?
Yes, exactly.
And there potentially could be, but there's not water rights in this part of the code, in the building, for the water rights were really still handled under the annexation and subdivision. But they do relate back, to one other place I saw it in the code, it relates back to the same section of code. There's a section that talks about modification of existing facilities and what changes when you do have a property that was a residence, just as we went through with the new 317 Evans before and how that might change. That refers back to the same portion of code that we're updating.
Thank you for the question. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, I don't have any questions, seems to be cut and dried. I would entertain a motion. Mr. Williams.
I believe that the one that's for the honor of which meeting and so that I have it.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay. You got that? All right, motion and second, any discussion?
Yeah, I gotta say something. Isn't this the biggest one right now?
Why would you?
On this. I just go there, so.
Right, and I just wanted to make sure we're clear with Longmont, right, because we have our IGA and there wasn't anything specific in there, and even they are like, yes, we had to make sure, and we are stating it would not be intent of this agreement to have that requirement. But again, because of the way it's worded, felt better to be safe.
Yeah. It should be noted, though, that we don't have anything in town over 2 inches. So if that 4-inch goes off quickly, we're gonna feel it in town. Just, I mean, just so you know that. There's that potential. It's on our main line. There's gonna probably be, and then there's no addressing who pays for the water in the fire. You know, when you think about these large fires, if those sprinklers should go off. That's just something the town needs. So, but I mean, those are just things, I mean, a 2-inch line would be more normal for a sprinkler, 1.5 or 2. To get 4-inch, we have to go to a
But it is on that note,
This is just, we don't know why they're requiring.
for fire suppression, I looked it up, I guess I didn't put it in the code. I thought I mentioned that there's documentation, at least what I saw, that shows they're gonna use much less water with the sprinkler system than coming out with the fire hydrant. So you are actually saving water. by
We
doing
all
that.
support it. It's just, yeah, it is one of those things that, yeah, right, no, it's good. Right, nice job. Okay, I will call for the vote.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. All right, consent agenda is next. So Vasquez, will you please read it into the record?
Yes, item 1 is resolution 2023-10, a resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado, approving the subscription of 4% of the town of Lyons' annual electricity consumption from the Municipal Energy Agency of Nebraska to their green energy program. Item 2 are the February 6, 2023 Board of Trustees meeting minutes, and item 3 are the February accounts payable.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Trustee Dati?
I motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Thank you. Is there any item anyone would like to remove from consent tonight? Okay, I will talk to the.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, everybody. All right, boards and commissions. So it is my pleasure to appoint Amy Schwartz to the Planning and Community Development Commission. And to reappoint Elena Hughes and Brandy Pollard to the Parks and Rec. Okay. Now, so it's 10 after 8. Do we want to take a break before we get into general business, or do we want to keep rolling? Keep rolling? Okay, all right.
I think
So-
Trustee Farrell's trying to signal she would like a break.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mayor Pro Tem, would you like a 5-minute break?
If we could just 5 minutes would be lovely, please.
Totally, 5 minutes. You got it.
I'm gonna bring the town business, keep this in mind. Speak on
We can't hear anything if you've started.
Sorry.
Can you just do it? Okay, so I'll say again, yeah, that, so this agenda item is follow-up regarding Railroad Avenue public input. So we're not gonna be making any decisions tonight. The board has already made a decision. If the board wishes to change that decision, that would take another resolution. So tonight we're gonna have a discussion. Trustee Delman requested that this be an agenda item, and if any trustee requests an agenda item and put on the agenda, just so everybody knows, request away. So I'll kick it off and then I'm gonna hand it off to Trustee Delman. That's it. Okay. All right, so Mayor Pro Tem and I, and Mayor Pro Tem, please feel free to interrupt, add whatever. We met with about 20 Evans Street residents a week ago Sunday, on Super Bowl Sunday, for 2 hours. And it was, as Mr. Wright said, it was at the basement of the Wright Church with the blue space. We all sat in a circle. It was the impetus for this was me talking to Kaylee Sue and saying, let me come over and chat with you and talk to neighbors. And it sort of grew out of that. So we heard some concerns, much of which we heard tonight. The concerns were increased traffic on Evans, general traffic increase, safety concerns because there are no sidewalks, which I'll remind everybody is one of our priorities as a board. And that there was a lack of outreach to the community. I will say that, you know, I have this timeline of events that occurred, and there was a public Zoom meeting almost a year ago on March 15th that 60 people attended. And there was also a web-based application for the public where they could add comments and send emails. So as just to remind everybody, we made this decision by resolution in June. We didn't really hear much about it until fairly recently. I want to say too that, you know, I know we all got an email from the community cyclists, and they're a great organization. I love community cyclists. They're one organization. They're based in Boulder. They represent one constituency, which is cyclists. So just to keep that in mind. And that staff wasn't there to present anything to community cyclists. So staff never had the opportunity to speak to them. We did hire traffic engineers. And so that's who created these options. One thing that, couple things I'd like to say. I do think we need to do another traffic study. And I think it needs to be over a busy weekend. I myself have witnessed what our neighbors on Evans are. So I do think we need to do that. And I do think we need to think about evolving the way that we communicate with the community, both as a board and as a town. You know, I think that following COVID and all kinds of crises that the town has been a part of, including fires, and you know, it's been rough. So I think we can look at different ways to communicate with the community. You know, as a communications professional, I know that one of the first rules is we have to meet people where they are, whether you want to go there or not. So, and I'm not saying that I don't, I do. But we have to consider how people consume information, and we have to make it consumable for them. So I also want to say that we can change the speed limit on streets at any time. It doesn't take a resolution for that. The speed limit right now in every residential street is 20 miles an hour, unless otherwise posted. So
that's code though, so you would have to do it by ordinance.
Okay, so we have to do it by ordinance. But,
When you have the ability to, with a new CDOT.
so, yeah, so there's no CDOT review about changing the speed limits on the streets, though, the side streets. Okay. So, anything you'd like to add, Mayor Pro Tem?
Well, yeah, I mean, I definitely felt like, you know,
Doesn't seem to.
She doesn't.
can you hear me?
Oh, now we can.
I can hear you.
Okay, great. What was I saying? Okay, so several things. I feel like what we heard a lot was two major issues. One that we've been hearing historically is that traffic within Evans and Third and Park has been a long-term problem, and it gets exacerbated in the summertime. And that there are things that that particular, neighborhood would really like to see some changes. So I think that we need to address those. And I think they're really valid. I think the thing that Railroad Avenue has the potential of making worse for them is the idea that speeds going down Railroad Avenue, if it's only 5-10 miles an hour, for example, that Google is going to say, oh, we'll go over to Evans and you can go 20 and skip all this traffic that's on 36. So, so perhaps there's some things there that we can be mindful of to make some adjustments that aren't going to necessarily be an overall impact and changing the ultimate goal of Railroad Avenue, that we're moving in that direction. So that's kind of what I heard, and it would be useful to have a discussion specific to the neighborhood and their long-term needs and requests. And then continuing to think about, well, what is Railroad Avenue going to do that could exacerbate that? Maybe it won't. But perhaps there are some changes. And I don't know if this is appropriate right now, of course, but it does look like we do have some new information that could potentially be presented this evening if the board is open to it, or we need to make another time set aside. I'm open either way.
Okay. We missed probably 30 seconds of what you said. I'm sorry, you froze. So could you maybe repeat your last section for us?
Well, I do think that there is new information that is available that staff has come up with. I'm open to, if everyone wants to agree, perhaps that's something we can look at and consider tonight, or plan for something in the very near future for it.
All right, Trustee Delman.
So I have to say that I do agree with the residents.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have to agree with the residents, and even though the speed limit would be slower with the wind, I think people are still gonna exceed 5 miles an hour. And I do think it will be confusing, just because we don't have computers elsewhere. And I think having a straight path where the pedestrians and cyclists go on the side, will create, it won't be so confusing. And I do, option 3 is better than option 2. And if we can't do it, I do think that other possibilities would be lowering the speed limit on Evans to 5 miles an hour, so that people don't get rerouted there, or making it a one-way eastward. So I have a two questions related to that. And actually, when we were talking about preferences, I remember actually this, I actually have a preference for option 2. And then you have to vote. It's for option 2 or 3. So I do understand that. I feel like what is the situation? I have no idea Does CDOT have to do a review if you do only one lane?
Which street?
If you did, yeah,
On Evans?
on Evans, yeah. So they would not have, so we could do a one way, at least, if we decided. And I just assumed that that was not something we would just. My understanding previously, and I just wanted to make sure I do understand this correctly, is if we were to change now, we have to have elections. Is this correct? Or-
I can speak to that. So,
so no, not necessarily. We would not have a funding issue if we would change from option 2 to 3. We would, I mean, we might have some design costs to design a new plan sheet for the contractor. And you would submit a package of revision to your plans to CDOT and then we would include that change. And that's basically, there's just some time associated with it at this point. And I think if you're just changing striping essentially, not a huge cost for completion rather than design.
Can you explain what this hold up though with the funding you talked about last?
So before, when we were talking about changing the design before we went out to bid, then we would have had to stop. We wouldn't have been able to go out to bid. We would have had to wait for CDOT and it would have delayed us. And we have some funding deadlines to meet the adopted plot. This way we can award the contract and we can do a change order after the fact. And usually striping is one of the last things you do in construction. So we'll have time, CDOT will have time to review while we're doing other work. So we're not delaying the project.
It did go out for bid, just so you know, and it's actually on your agenda for March 6th to award the contract, so we get started in Broadway.
Great. Yeah, that's really helpful. Actually, that's what I was looking for. I was going back through this, trying to find out. It's like, I know there was a fund, but, so the main thing I would be interested in, I would have brought it up if you did it. I think doing a traffic study during particularly during June or July, weekend would really help us in knowing what we need to do. Regardless of what happens on railroad. Those are my.
I think what's been frustrating to me about this whole thing is we're conflating two different issues here. This originally, when I first heard back from the people and I saw those emails, the issue was, oh, we think railroad is unsafe as a warning, or whatever, however we pronounce it. But then as the discussion went on, it became more clear, oh no, that's not really the issue. The issue is it's going to have put more traffic on Evans. So this is really about Evans. It's not about railroad. And so I think this reminder to everybody involved here, be genuine in your arguments of what you're really trying to achieve. Now, one of the things the comp plan calls for is for the town to be more pedestrian friendly, to have more pedestrian or bicycle. It was in our past comp plan, it's in this comp plan. And then secondly, try to take railroad to make it a pedestrian friendly thing, all of a sudden everybody's upset. And so I don't support saying railroad should have two-way traffic, Evans should have two-way traffic, pedestrians, medium, pick your choice. You've got two-way traffic on either ones. What I think we need is not only a traffic study, but we also need a connectivity plan. Because if we are going to try to build out this town so that bikes and people can walk and we have very, very safe places to walk, that might mean we give up some roads. And if no one's willing to give up any road, then we can just say, okay, scratch that from plan, let's just not do it. So I'm frustrated because I think there's been a lot of disengagement with whatever that is in this argument here. So I'll stop here, but I really like the idea of railroad being very, very pedestrian friendly. So I would go option down with it wasn't at all. And letting people and making it surely walkable, or purely bikeable, or a golf cart. That goes from my thoughts.
Trustee Wilson,
So I feel exactly the same way. I feel that it's safer than trying to compete. But I also feel if we continue to speed limits on the other streets, we should do that too. Make it easier, so that way all the traffic doesn't get diverted onto their streets. So I'll tell you, I'll be honest, I drive a big truck. When I turn down to go down the street, I can't make it down. So at that corner coming off of 66, the way it's so tight, so I don't know how big trucks can. My truck it doesn't make it down, so I have to. So that's my fault. I feel that it doesn't matter to me what design you pick for railroad. I feel like it should stay 5 miles an hour. If you pick that speed for safety, kids, for go-karts, people on bikes, for we should also, if it's stop the GPS from sending the cars down the other roads, adjust the speed limits there and make it one way. If we can after the traffic study, see how much it's actually.
We haven't heard from trustee Dottie yet, trustee Williams, so we'll hear from trustee Dottie if she has anything to contribute.
Yeah, I apologize for not really being able to hear any of what you're saying. I'm trying really hard to focus on everybody, but I really need everybody to speak into their microphones directly and enunciate for us to be able to follow what you're saying. It's very difficult to follow the discussion. So I'm just going to say what I think I'm hearing and what I agree with. I've read the emails. I heard the general audience members speak. I think safety is a major concern, whether you're a pedestrian, a cyclist, a vehicle. I strongly believe in sidewalks. I also strongly believe in realistic speed limits. My neighbors where I live, actually, we're even looking into reducing the speed limit on our street. So as was mentioned before, the speed limit in Lyons is 20 miles per hour. And from what I understand, as long as you get half of the people on your street to sign a petition and come to general audience and request reduction in speed limit, that is possible. So I think if residents on Evans want to reduce the speed limit, that's something that they could request and signage could be put up. I also have said from the beginning that I don't think it's realistic to expect people to follow a 5 mile per hour speed limit on railroad. And I do agree that if people have the option between 25 miles per hour on the highway or 5 miles per hour on railroad or 20 miles per hour on Evans, they will make that choice, and Google Maps might make that choice for them if they're trying to get around summer traffic. So I'm willing to revisit that option. I'm also very concerned about how that will delay the Broadway project.
Thank you. Trustee Williams.
Just going back to the part of the plan vision. Any of us who built homes in Stone Family, they built Stone Family Drive, and multiple communications telling us.
Trustee Williams, I'm having a really hard time hearing you again. I'm really sorry. I don't know if the microphone is up differently tonight or something, but you in particular, I can barely hear.
We were informed so many times in so many ways that there was major truck traffic and always would be on Stone Family Drive. And when you move into a particular neighborhood, you have certain understandings about what things are going to be like in that particular neighborhood. And so I think that is a reality. It probably has been for God knows how many decades on a number of our streets in town. That certainly in the summertime are going to get heavier usage. But that it is so the communication piece is just I just like to be as much as possible before things happen. With what's going to take place. That's all.
Thank you. Trustee Dottie, Mayor Pro Tem, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay. It's the fine balance between being loud enough and not getting feedback from the microphone. So I'd like to address one thing that I'm hearing that pertains to this board, which is that Trustee Williams, you said that you would have voted differently, but you thought the board was going one way when we made this decision. Just want to clarify.
I definitely, when we were just going around saying, what do you think? I like 3, and then once we were going through, I voted for 2 because I agreed to vote for 2. So if I had felt that strongly enough about 3, I would have voted negative. So yeah, I was not coerced. It's just that I realized it was like, yeah, I'm probably good either way with this. I would also, with trustee Edding, I would have been good with on that, because I think getting I'm a bike rider and I'm a runner. So every place I can be that I'm not endangering my life, I like to do. But no, when the time came, I was more convinced that 2 was.
Thank you for that clarification. I just want to make sure that if any trustee is has any sort of disagreement, it's more than welcome, because that's how we make great decisions. And so, customarily what happens is if there's a vote and a trustee is going to vote no, they say, I am going to vote no on this motion, and here's why. And sometimes that changes other people's minds or leads to better discussion, or, so just want to put that out there. So I know that Planner Kimmett and Victoria have an option.
Do you want to ask if people want to do this?
That
Since you've already voted?
Okay, so do we want to revisit our vote?
So I feel like we said at the beginning, if we went with option 2, we revisit it after the meeting, which is 8, the restrike. If we're gonna go through with the traffic study anyway, why don't we just stay with the option that we have? We've already decided, we've already picked it, and then it's just the cost of 8 restrike. Then we're making an informed decision about what is going on with traffic in the area, and see how the impacts are within the world. That's my opinion.
Trustee Williams?
I would like to hear what they have to say. If that is fair to do before we would make that decision. If we need to make the decision now, then I would say I would be with the trustees.
I don't necessarily want to go back and redo the vote. Although I think if we did, we'd have a lot more people here and we could make a lot of additional points that weren't made because not a lot of people attended it originally. But I do think, and I completely agree with the people on Evans. When the summertime happens and people start weaving through town to get past the stoplight, that's a major problem for that street. And I think it's also true north of the street as well. Everyone's just, it's like log jamming, and the water's going all through the town. So I would say to make an agenda item and a traffic study and activity plan, but to understand how we can get traffic through the town in the summer without it bleeding through every side street. And again, more than just Evans. I don't think we should concentrate on Evans when the problem is greater than that.
It will be pushed apart.
Okay.
And most cars are in their right hand lane going up to 36 north, so they are actually cutting through 3rd and 16 and
And we don't want to push them up to the elementary school, because even if the summer, I know kids still go to the playground, etc.
they're already there.
And so it's like wherever we push it, it's gonna go somewhere, right? And so it's just difficult. I feel for the people in the neighborhood. I totally understand. But can I have one more thing? I've been on the PCDC for a long time, and when we started, or when St. Vrain School District started building the additional thing into the parking lot, there was all kinds of emails about, yes, education is important. Yes, having the best facility we can have. However, it's going to add parking in front of my house. And so you can't really do it. I'm like, well, come on, let's wait at 2 different things. When we looked at Summit, I can tell you, when we did the design review for Summit, I was chair of the PCDC. I was going to bring in a stack of emails that I got from people saying, oh my God, affordable housing is important. Oh my God, we should do this. But it's gonna create more traffic on my street, so you can't. No one wants more traffic in front of their house. But there's a certain, you can't stop everything because of that. And I do believe really strongly that we need a connectivity plan and we need to be building out more of the town for trails, bikes, pedestrians that are completely and totally safe. I'll see the floor of this plan.
Thank you. Trustee Yeoman, the question is, as a reminder, is do we want to revisit this?
I would say if people, if you don't want to revisit, do 5 miles an hour. Evans, I think that could solve a lot of the problems.
Well, yes, we could decide to do, as we heard, whatever we want on Evans. So are you saying that if we could reduce this, you're asking? So you're saying that you would not want to revisit the vote if we can lower the speed limit on Evans? Is that what you're saying?
I think that could be I think that could help solve the problem.
Okay.
So, yes.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem, what are your thoughts?
So there was something I think I missed in some of the discussions, but I'll ask this question.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Oh, okay. There's something I missed in the discussion, so I'm going to ask this question, and it's about that you're talking at different times about traffic study. So what I'm concerned is can we actually do a traffic study this summer while construction on Broadway is happening and it be considered a real reasonable study? So,
great question.
So that's kind of one of my first, like, well, is that even possible at this point until after?
I'm gonna let Tracy answer that. That's okay. That's a great question.
I would anticipate that we could. We haven't done the contractor schedule yet, but the only lane closures anticipated would be on Broadway, so coming down the other direction. And we're requiring the contractor to have that open by Memorial weekend, both lanes open. So I would anticipate, yes, the traffic stay. And I would maybe July might be better, but still.
I'd like to add to that. If you decide you are going to revisit this or you want more information, we have dozens of documents regarding this. The latest traffic study was 2019. So that was just the year before the pandemic. It is not that old. And we do have directional data for Evans, for Broadway, Park Street, and I don't remember if Railroad wasn't involved. And so Railroad, it wasn't involved, but we do have pretty recent data to compare to. One of the things that is not we mentioned is that ever since the pandemic, when Rocky Mountain National Park went to its timed entries, we don't have the backups we used to have. We used to back up well past 36, 66 all the time. Now it's just the maybe up to third. So it's very different behavior than what it was before in 2019. And then the other thing is there's all sorts of traffic data we can provide you regarding what is the normal amount of street traffic on a residential street. And I can tell you Evans is far below it. Already, even with that busy traffic, we're all kind of spoiled. We live in a small town and we're used to 9 months of the year being really comfortable. So even looking at that traffic data from 2019, it's well below the average street movement. And I do agree with Trustee Williams. We all live in different neighborhoods. I live by the high school. They put someone over, a child going 70 miles an hour. right? You can't control individual behavior. So, we have issues during, every day and every football game. I mean, elementary has them every day. And I did check in with the post office because the post office is the greatest number of people anywhere in our town every day. They service over 3,000 people a day. So there is a lot of traffic coming into that area right around Evans Railroad and Broadway, like that. And so I think there's so many factors to consider here. And staff is fine if you decide you want to revisit, and if you don't, we're okay with that. If you want to have another session just to tweak maybe miles per hour or directional, I think changing direction is I think we should do a little more study on that. That affects how emergency vehicles respond, how the neighbors respond. Are neighbors really going to go 5 miles an hour down Evans? There's lots to consider here.
I want to make
A lot to package.
I know Mayor Pro Tem had more to say, so I just want to make sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, sure. I'm sorry.
No, that's good, actually. I appreciate hearing that. So, I guess my feeling is, that we have an opportunity. If we do have an opportunity, we've heard so much. I know that I felt very frustrated initially that we did not get this kind of public input back in the beginning, frankly. And if we had, I think we would not be in the position that we're in right now. I do feel like, though, at some point, you got to make a decision and you got to move forward. So I personally believe that there are things that we can do to make adjustments on Railroad Avenue that could be more satisfactory. So I want to consider that. I think that one way is still important. I think speed needs to be reconsidered. And maybe there's some minor adjustments that we can make to make this go forward in the essence that it's at right now. However, that does not take away the responsibility that we have for the neighboring streets that are really, really having a problem. But I think we need to address that separately. So I am in favor of looking at this to make some minor adjustments, to move forward and be final. But I also really want to emphasize there are other things that we really should take seriously and consider for Evans Park, 3rd, etc.
Thank you very much. Trustee Dottie.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I can hear you best. I think that I agree with most of what she said. I think I would like to revisit that traffic study if it's out there. I don't know. I guess traffic maybe has changed since the pandemic, since the time entry. Maybe it is worth conducting a new traffic study at this point in time. I don't know how much they cost. And again, one of my concerns is how does that affect the Broadway project from going forward? So I'm not sure I understood what the impact there.
So it does not impact the Broadway project going forward. The Broadway project is out for bid, and we will be seeing that bid award on our next trustee meeting.
And if we wait till later summer.
Yeah. So, one thing, talking about the traffic study and the changes in the time entry, I think one thing that has changed is I don't think Google used to send people down Evans. I think that's the big change that happened over the past 3-4 years. So, I would love to see some information about how to nudge Google so that it doesn't send.
I think there's a process for that too. I'm recalling that this has come before with CML, but there's a process where you can say, hey, Google Maps, don't send people this way, basically. I can look into that for you if you want. I mean, there's all sorts of other apps, right? And we can't get them all, but I think there's a way where they can put in their logarithm and they at least discourage people from going certain routes.
Yeah, maybe Google and Apple Maps. So that would be the place to start. I share the frustration that we didn't get this input when we were first discussing this. In fact, we heard quite the opposite when we made this decision in June. We heard that, oh, this is okay, you know, no, not our number one choice maybe, but you know, this will work. So, and I understand that we made the decision, and if the board makes the decision, then it should move forward. And I balance that with, okay, so we also hear all this community input. And the community input is also extremely important. So, so I'm in the camp of let's move forward with the option that we chose, and let's talk about some enhancements and changes that can directly affect the impacts that are perceived to be going to. So I think, Victoria, does that give you?
I think
what you
so.
need?
I think so. What you're saying is, move forward, and then in the meantime, while we're working on Broadway and getting that started, we have the next couple months to see if we want to bring forward other specific changes to railroad, including potential, even lane possible adjustments. Speed. Other.
And at the same time, we can be investigating how we might be able to discourage us from shutting people down at us in the first place.
Also, one of the residents said signage, because that is a confusing intersection,
Yeah.
signage that would point out where we need to go.
Something that's residential, no, it's Ridge Street.
Or even just post office this way, yeah, with an arrow.
Well, I think
it's
both
fine.
folks know the road. And I think what we actually found out is a lot of Evans is locals when they did the study.
Mhm.
It's the Dolores and I that, you know, use it 3 or 4 times a day. And you, because your truck doesn't go down that road. I think a lot of it is local, except for those really busy summer weekends. And that's probably what we need to do this.
I used it for months. Always go down there.
Well, I take it on the way to work, but come home.
Okay, thank you, everybody, for a great conversation. And thank you to the folks who came to speak and who sent us emails and who also showed up for 2 hours on Super Bowl Sunday to talk about the issue.
I think I do need one other just clarification is staff is working on this. So there are 2 messages. One was the option that you had most recently selected involved making the winner slower, and I heard several of you say you like that. But then what I heard the neighbor say is make that faster so that cars take that instead of Evans. So that piece, I'm kind of hearing a split.
Well, and I will say that I drove down Railroad going 5 miles an hour, and I don't think it's realistic that people are gonna go 5 miles in the railroad. And I don't think that we're gonna get a sheriff's deputy to sit there with a speed gun waiting for somebody going to the post office to go 20. So, you know, I'm kind of the mind of like, if nobody's gonna drive 5 miles an hour, then why do it?
On any street.
Yes. You might as well just shut the street down to automobiles. It's just not realistic.
Which is what some of you said too, was your second choice. So it's like, it is complex.
So town administrator said, I think you hit on a really key point here. And I still think we're all kind of missing the point. Is the goal to get traffic to go on railroad?
Yes.
Or is it to try to make railroad more of a pedestrian place? Because I feel the people telling us they want.
They want a railroad, and I'm hearing you guys say that's not what.
That's not what we want. I think if we look at a connectivity plan, it is making railroad very pedestrian and bike friendly. So I still think we're missing the point.
Well, and I think we can maybe do both. I mean, call me an optimist, but I think that there's a way to separate the multimodal path from the road enough so that it is safe. So, and so that cars can go a little bit faster than 5 miles.
So you were presented originally with, I think, 4 options. Well, originally it was like 2, and then it went to 3, and then it went to 4, but 4 options were presented.
Yeah, originally was 1 and went to 4. I
Yes.
think what we're about to present is the same, essentially the same as 2.
It was 5.
It would be number 5, but it's very close to 2.
There is one other option, and this is what we were talking about, is do you want to hold work session, or do you want to look at the whole purpose of not the whole purpose, one of the main purposes of the US 36 Broadway project was to increase parking in the commercial district. And secondly, it was a multimodal trail. That's how we got the funding, was to create a multimodal trail, bikes, peds, golf carts. So we would have a 10-foot trail all the way from Laverne Johnson, eventually to 3666, right? That's the goal. So we've heard several different options from the public, like 2-way plus a smaller ped. That doesn't work. 2-way and ped doesn't fit safely. So David Kimmitt, who was not involved when we first started this, has come up with a 5th option, which is, what about keeping the 10-foot multimodal trail all the way down Railroad, so that bikes, pets, and carts still use that, and having just a 1-way lane, narrow, 10, 11 feet, the cars can use. So then bicyclists and golf carts aren't on there with the cars. That they're actually on the multimodal, which was the intent of this path to begin with. But it could, and then there's room for a solid, more solid golf. Instead of just me. I know there's pinch points, we don't, that would.
No, but I want to be careful about saying that we could put a solid buffer there, and that's something that needs to be looked at, so.
A more something. Potential for.
Potential, we would have to look at that, but right now, probably still just the soft meters, but it essentially is option 3, but you have a wider head. The option 3 had a head trail lane of 8 feet, and you would widen it to 10 feet. And then your cars have anywhere from 10 to 12 feet along that road, because the road narrows, it's not consistently the same like all the way through. So, but essentially it's the same thing, but giving you a wider head.
So in a way, it meets both of those needs we're talking about that are conflicting. You have a 10-foot meandering path for the folks that are going from Lions Valley Park out for dinner. They're going to ride their bike on that one. And then you still have a true vehicle lane that's big enough for us.
And it's 1 way.
And it's 1 way.
It's still 1 way.
This is. So
I
this
was
one,
just gonna say, put up a picture, please. Yeah, put the picture up, please.
maybe it needs both.
I'm happy to speak to this as well, like where this even comes from and why.
Sure.
So I'm an avid cyclist, and I've never seen a bi-directional share-up as is proposed in option 1, which was selected. It's kind of a spooky thought to go contra.
Option 1 was sense.
Or option 2, which was selected. A bi-directional share-up is unusual at best, I would say. And so I thought of it from a cyclist perspective. I also thought of it from a driver's perspective to see a potential cyclist coming at you head on, and also with the acknowledgement that 5 miles per hour is not realistic speed. It's not a real wonder. People are saying wonder, it's chicanes. Chicanes are, painted stripes, or even they can be hardscape, but a winter is something entirely different. This is something that is I felt uncomfortable with. And so I tried to contemplate a different approach whereby the realism of 5 miles per hour met with what our internal speed limit is, 20 miles per hour. So why not have within the 24-foot with proposed improvements that the consultant utilized now, realizing that the actual asphalt width of railroad varies between 19 and 20, well, actually 30 feet in a few places, but as narrow as 19. We can have a generic cross section like what you see on the screen, a 12-foot wide roadway, one way westbound at 20 miles per hour, separated by a two-foot buffer. And I put a stone divider in there because it's something that I thought would speak to our design guidelines. Yeah, and for safety. You know, it's nice to have something that's a physical buffer rather than a soft buffer. Or a sturdy buffer rather than a soft buffer. And then a 10-foot wide multi-use path, which would allow for bi-directional flow for pedestrians, bikes, potentially health cars. And then something that isn't indicated on here would be you still could have a sharrow going westbound on the roadway. You know, for the cyclists who are like, I just want to blaze through this. I don't want to be on the 10-foot wide multi-use path. You can use a sharrow, and a sharrow going in the direction of traffic is understandable, and it's that's utilized universally for the past 20 years since they were invented in Denver in like 1987. But I feel this provides an out almost that would assist in the rationale that Trustee Edding you speak of, which is pedestrianism and multimodalism, plus having an outlet for traffic to avoid Evans. It's kind of a two-pronged approach toward resolving something that will never have a happy conclusion. There's not a solution that will ever work for railroad perfectly, but it's also an opportunity. You know, every challenge is an opportunity, and this gives us a chance, perhaps, to resolve that issue of too slow of a speed limit with silly striping. This is my opinion as a cyclist, not necessarily reflecting staff opinion. And also the cause of keeping bikes and people separated from that traffic itself. It's not a great separation, which would be ideal, but it's using the best of what we can with the budget that we have.
Thank you. A question as a non-cyclist. Very briefly, what is a sharrow?
So great question. Sharrow Mayor Rogan is, you'll see them on streets. I don't think we have any in Lyons. Do we have some in Lyons? Oh yeah, we do now on 4th actually. So a sharrow is, you'll see the bike symbol, with a rider and then 2 arrows in front of it. And it's usually in the middle of the traffic lane. And that's indicative of, hey, this road is for bikes and cars simultaneously.
Got it.
Yeah.
I've seen them. I just had no idea they had a name.
Yeah, it's
a good name.
transportation jargon, but yeah.
Thank you. Tracy, please.
We do have the design engineer on the call, and we would like to speak to.
Fabulous.
Yeah, you guys are open to that.
Fabulous.
So
Is that Mr. Jane?
it's Josh.
Josh.
Oh, okay, now he's saying, he's saying, never mind. He's saying, either option would work, option 3 or any 2 or 3 or what's being proposed now.
Okay.
So, but I do want to reiterate we would have to talk about the barrier. I don't want to set the expectation that we could put a wall there. There's a couple things to consider, and so we would have to visit that. So
Okay, thank you. Okay, so without going too far into the weeds on this, let me just ask if there is interest in having staff go back and investigate this more and discussing this potential option.
and feedback from the neighbors.
And thank you, and getting feedback from the neighbors in this.
This is a good option. Plus those other things.
Yeah, there's a lot. Trustee Dowdy, please, thank you.
I like this option. Thank you very much.
Just a reminder, we're not voting on this tonight. Trustee Gilman?
Agree, I think this looks like the best option.
Okay, so. So the question is, do we want staff to come back with? Okay. Okay, okay. So that's the answer. Mayor Pro Tem. I'm really sorry, it's hard for me to look at somebody who's speaking and then also look at the screen. My eyes don't work that way. My mom's.
Yes, my answer is yes, please have staff work with this.
Okay. All right, and so just to reiterate, this will not hold up the project.
No,
Okay,
as long as we're sticking to just striping, then no, I don't think there's anything left to the project. Just want to reiterate too that there are some areas of road that are only 19 to 20 feet, so some areas it's 10 feet wide for the cars, which is doable, but just want to make sure everybody's doable.
thank you. It's doable except for Trustee Elsie's truck.
And that's another point I want to. Yeah, I do want to bring up, I think there was a request or suggestion to put the trail on the south side. However, we did put the trail on the north so that you have a wider turning radius to get onto the road better. So I think it would make it too tight of a turn if we switch that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, all right, so we good to move on? Okay. Next up, we have discussion directions to staff on potential marijuana sales tax increase. Who's taking this one?
Ms. Cassidy. Good evening. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so just a little background information. It was requested from the Board of Trustees that staff research neighboring communities, as well as a couple of mountain communities, to compare our local retail marijuana sales tax. Right now, the town's retail marijuana sales tax is 3.5%, and that is in addition to our regular sales tax of 3.5%. And the Board of Trustees has the capability to increase that up to 10% via ordinance without going to voter approval. So I did include a chart in the packet that compared the local communities with, and then I put in a couple of neighbor or of mountain communities in there as well. And as you can see, a lot of the neighboring communities were fairly similar to us. Boulder, the city of Boulder is 3.5%. Longmont was 3%. Netherland is 5%. Lafayette is 5%. And then a lot of the mountain communities I noticed did not charge a separate retail marijuana sales tax. They just use their only their regular sales tax rate. And then another thing that I'd like to mention is that these rates are in addition to the state sales tax rate, the Boulder County sales tax rate, the state special marijuana tax rate, which is 15%. So all of those tax rates combined for Lions equal 27.185%. So that's the tax rate. And then just to compare an area, for example, some of our neighboring dispensaries who are in unincorporated Boulder County, the piece that they do not have is the municipal sales tax, as well as the municipality's local sales tax. So for example, Zen Gold or a place like that, their tax rate is 20.185. And I did create a little visual, if you'd like for me to share it, if you're interested, just to show you what the impact of that is, of those local sales tax rates. So I'm happy to share that. And then I just provided an estimate of, for example, if we were to increase by 1%, My estimate is that would be around 30 to 40,000 dollars in additional annual revenue just for that portion. It is definitely an estimate because we now have 3 dispensaries who, recently we've only had 2. So now that we have 3, we can report on those tax numbers. So I'm really going off of 3 months of data and then creating some assumptions as well and trying to annualize those. So something to kind of keep in mind. And then in addition, just a note that in Colorado in general, the marijuana sales has seen a decrease. So Lyons has also noticed a little bit of that decrease as well. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind that we're seeing statewide. And I'm happy to answer any questions or show any of those visuals to kind of compare unincorporated Boulder County to the town of Lyons as well, if you'd like.
Thank you. I would like to see those visuals, and while you're getting them up, pardon my ignorance, everybody, but does Estes Park?
No, they don't have any. We are the last.
We're the last stop.
But if you go to Starbucks at the hygiene corner or Zen Gold, you're paying.
So here, I did this afternoon, so it's not in your packet after Victoria and I were talking a little bit. What I wanted to show you is just an example for a retail product sale of $50. So somebody goes in to a dispensary in unincorporated Boulder County and they buy something for $50. These are the various taxes that they are paying. So the tax rate for unincorporated Boulder County is a combined 20.185%, meaning they're on that $50, they're going to pay $10.09 in taxes. Whereas in the town of Lyons, you can see the pieces that we add here, of course, are the municipal sales tax that we charge on all retail sales, in addition to the marijuana tax, which is what we're discussing tonight, which is also 3.5%. So they're paying a combined 27.185% in taxes, which equates to $13.59. So for example, if we were to increase by 1% on that $50 sale, it would be an additional 50 cents on that sale. A 2% increase would be an additional $1 in taxes on that sale. So I think the real reason I wanted to show this is that, one, to illustrate the high tax rates in general, but also to show that in my personal opinion and professional opinion, I feel like if somebody is going to pay so much attention to the tax rate, so that it's going to push them to those dispensaries in unincorporated Boulder County, which really isn't very far from here, they probably are going there anyways, right? So instead of coming to Lyons because they don't want to pay the additional, $3.50 on their sales. So I don't know what kind of an impact personally that per 1%, do I feel like we're going to lose sales off of it and push, our customers potentially to unincorporated Boulder County? Probably not. You can see the difference in tax rates already that are there, but I kind of just wanted to show this just for illustrative purposes.
Thank you very much. I kind of feel like the people who are worried about saving $3 their cannabis are probably people who live in Lyons. Okay, so I have a couple of questions, but I want to see. Trustee Dati, you have any questions for Director Eystone?
No, I don't, but I thank her for this simulation. It's really helpful to see. I had no idea that there was a special state tax with Colorado that was like 15%. So I'm astounded to learn that there's a 27.815% total sales tax.
And we do get some of that back. I should caveat that, that with so they pay sales tax, Town of Lyons, we get that, of course, but the state also shares that special marijuana tax. So we receive that in every month as well. Not the full 15%, but we receive, gosh, I want to say at least 3% of it. I'm not positive. Don't quote me on that, but it's a decent chunk.
So we'd be getting 3.5% from the regular sales tax for the town of Lyons, then another 3.5% for the marijuana sales tax, plus another 3% from the state of Colorado. So
That's
potentially somewhere between 9 and 10%.
That's correct.
As it stands right now.
That is correct.
Well, I really appreciate that simulation. Thank you. I had no idea.
Sure. Yeah, I didn't know that either. So that's really good information. I'm still inclined that we could increase our taxes just a little bit. And I'm in favor of the one, and I don't see the percentages in front of us anymore, where it's a 50 cents increase. I don't think that's going to, I mean, quite frankly, I think like Mayor Rogan said, perhaps our local customers might want to go down the street to pay less in taxes, but I do believe that our tourists, they're here, last stop, they've spent the night, they're going to that's not going to make a difference.
Maybe we need to, how they say like last gas.
I know, some should say.
Do you have any questions?
Feeling is
Can you use your microphone?
I don't think I have any questions, but my feeling is that we could use.
See, I have maybe a couple of ignorant questions here. Do we have a tobacco tax and how does it compare?
There's. Did you get that, Kath?
I can't, it's hard to hear.
Yeah, he asked whether we have a tobacco tax.
We do get a state cigarette tax every month. It's a couple $100 that we receive from the state on cigarette tax.
Okay, so we don't have any special tobacco tax or anything.
No.
Does the state tax tobacco at about a 20% rate? I was comparing it. I just wanted to.
I believe at the last election it even went higher. It was approved by voters to go higher at the last election. Mhm.
The other question I have is, we distinguish medical marijuana from recreational marijuana?
For the tax rate?
Taxes, yeah.
No.
Oh, there's no tax on that.
Well, there's no tax.
I don't think so.
No, this is retail.
They're completely different regulatory regimes. Yeah.
Have any medical? Yes, we do.
And now we can't hear trustee Mayor Rogan.
Just looking at tax rates for tobacco products, 50% through 24, 56%, 24 to 27, and 62% compared to 2027. That's here in Colorado.
To discourage usage. Thank you. Okay, so a couple questions. When this tax was first set, why do you recall why the trustees chose 3.5%?
We did a similar survey at that time of the communities that had already adopted, and we based it on what our neighboring communities were doing. We were before Longmont, so we really only had Boulder to go with, and we matched them.
Okay. So, and I asked Administrator Simonson this earlier, so we haven't yet talked to the existing businesses to see how they feel about this. I'm interested in talking about raising the tax, but I do want to do that outreach for them. Okay, so it sounds to me like we're in agreement that we're open to raising the tax. Does anybody want to throw a percentage out there?
I would be comfortable with it going up as high as 5, since we have other municipalities that are.
Okay, for those of you who missed it, trustee Elson said, sure.
I would agree, but I completely agree with the outreach. I think we're, based on everything else, we should do that.
Yeah, okay, trustee Dillon,
My thought was fine, so.
Mayor Pro Tem?
So I couldn't hear.
We're talking about an increase to 5% with
Oh,
outreach to existing businesses.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm in favor of that. One other suggestion though I had is, you know, maybe it would be a good idea to do a community survey. There's a good chance we'll get a big fat no. And if people then will show up angry with us after the fact, that maybe this is something we should be a little bit more proactive with. I'm all for it, but I also want to be cognizant of not just what a business might say, but what our residents really would or would not want.
I appreciate that. I also think that, if we're talking about $1 on a $50 purchase. So that's an interesting thing to consider. Trustee Dati?
Yeah, I agree with some outreach as well. And I also agree with raising it, whether it's 50 cents or $1, or whether it's 1 or 1.5%. I feel like if you're already spending $50 on a retail product and it's going to be, I don't think people realize that they're spending $13 or $13.50 on taxes on top of that $50 product. I don't really think that when you're at that level, I don't know if they're paying attention to an extra 50 cents or $1.
So it sounds like we're in agreement to bring that resolution to raise the marijuana tax to 5%, pending some feedback.
So if we get feedback that, oh, we think they could tolerate 1%, but not 1%.
Yeah. What's curious to me, I want to say, looking at this chart that you put together, Cassie, is that pretty wealthy communities don't charge a local tax. Like Telluride, Steamboat doesn't, Aspen doesn't, Crested Butte doesn't.
Their sales are so high.
Yeah, they don't need to. They're not messing around with an extra $40,000 a year.
No, not exactly. No.
And it's all visitors who are in.
And it's all visitors, right?
I was gonna say, those are all destinations and various. So maybe that's what.
But I do think we need to get that, less marijuana for 100 miles. Sign. All right, next, discussion direction to staff regarding the executive session. So, I think Brandon, maybe help me out here. We talked about some components, and I think the direction would be for staff to execute on what we discussed in the executive session.
Yeah, I think, first staff is to go back and negotiate with Leaf on the points we discussed. And then for me, once I get that direction, to draft the lease. But if the negotiations don't go within the board's parameters, that we need to get an executive a special meeting.
A special meeting, yeah.
Special meeting. Great, thank you. And
Mayor
then.
Pro Tem.
Mayor Pro Tem, thank you.
Did we discuss a workshop?
A potential special meeting.
We discussed a potential special meeting if necessary, but we didn't discuss a workshop.
I did bring it up.
Oh, I'm
To
sorry.
show their photo, their drawings and bring it up to speed.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, I thought the special meeting was to include Director Lori Barton.
Well, you may need one if you're gonna make a decision.
Yeah, so I think, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for that question, because I think we do want to workshop with Leaf, because we do want to refresh on what they're proposing to the community. And the possibility exists that we may call a special meeting to discuss the lease.
Do we want that workshop at the next meeting?
Did I get that right, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, please. That's great.
Thank you.
And then I don't think there's any follow-up for the Honeywell executive session from Attorney Denman, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, thanks. I think we're probably gonna need another executive session in our future, but no specific follow.
Yeah, and next time we'll go first. Okay. Trustee reports. We'll start online. Trustee Dati.
Yes, so on Monday, we had a Housing and Human Services Commission meeting. We have a potential new member, or I guess somebody who's interested in becoming a commissioner, which we still have 2 vacant spots, so that would be hugely appreciated. She actually came to present about a women's menopause support group she'd like to begin, and that will be advertised probably through the programming. We talked about, actually, for both the Economic Vitality Commission and the Housing and Human Services, we talked about their priorities for this year, so that I have some information going into our retreat on March 4th. We talked about whether, because we've been looking at different options to bring medical provider services to Lions, we thought maybe it would be worthwhile to survey the community to determine where people are going for their healthcare needs. You know, we had reached out to Salou, for example, and they were asking us, well, where were people in Lions getting, first they were astounded that there wasn't a medical provider. And then they said, okay, but where are people going? And so we were able to get numbers for Clinica in Boulder, I think it was. I'm not sure about Salou. So I don't know what you think about surveying the community. You know, a little bit of time and effort will go into that. And I think it could be helpful going forward, personally, that we have some numbers so we know who's getting healthcare, where are they getting healthcare, do they need healthcare? And it's encouraging to know that LEAF is planning on bringing some type of healthcare to their new facility in the future. So I think that will at least help people who don't have transportation to Longmont or Boulder, where medical services exist right now. So any feedback on that would be helpful. We are having our first information session regarding the housing, the Summit Housing. It'll be this Saturday. I think it's between 1 and 2:30. And if you can't make it this Saturday, it's going to be next Wednesday evening. Sorry, I don't have that right in front of me here. I think I have it on my calendar, actually. Oh, here it is. Sorry. Let me get that for you in case anybody's listening and wants to attend. Saturday, February 25th from 1 to 2:30 and Wednesday, March 1st from 6 to 7:30. So if you think you meet the criteria, if you have been displaced by the flood and you've been able to hang on this whole time, congratulations. This is what we've been waiting for, right? We'd like to help you get permanent affordable housing here in Lions. And you should come to that information session. If you live or work in Lions, you should also come to this information session. We will have a representative from the Highland Property Management Company who will be able to hand out a checklist of everything that's required and be able to answer any questions, give some numbers. And you know, applications will be taken sometime in April. They'll be accepted. And if you can't make it this Saturday, please come on Wednesday, March 1st from 6 to 7:30. Both of these meetings will be held at the Lions Regional Library. So this is something that, you know, the town of Lions and several board of trustees have been working on since the flood, and it's here. And we're gearing up to make sure that residents have their applications ready and complete so that when the application process is open, that window is open in April, that people can show up and they can apply. So that's really exciting for the Housing and Human Services Commission. As for the Economic Vitality Commission, they met on February 15th. Like I said, we reviewed priorities for our board retreat. Each commissioner signed up for 1 action item. So they've even made it so far as 2 action items. We talked about whether they were in favor of feather banner signs. I don't know if you realize what those are, those long, like those tall vertical signs that people plant outside their businesses to attract people's attention as they're driving by on Highway 36. It sounds like there's a consensus that people are in favor of that on the EVC because it shows that these businesses are open. And I think it's, as you know, the winter season can be difficult for businesses. And there was an update on upcoming events. You know, for example, the next Winter Wonderland concert will take place February 25th. And there will be a race. The Lucky Lions race is coming back for the second year on March 11th. And last night I attended the first meeting with the Chamber of Commerce of the year. And so that was really just, they wanted an update on the hotel, and they wanted an update on the Broadway improvement plan. They're obviously concerned about the fencing on the sidewalk. I was able to reassure them that the town of Lyons is working closely with CDOT to try and come up with like a safe option by Memorial Day so pedestrians can get around that fencing. I don't know, maybe it's just conjecture. I think what I've heard is they're worried about the roof caving in, and so the fence is to protect that area surrounding that building in case that were to happen. They also talked about businesses who were impacted by the fire, the Main Street fire. There was a roundtable with United policyholders there, and LEAF and the EBC, LCF, Town of Lyons, all of the major stakeholders were there. I feel like we have one business owner, the Farmers Insurance Company, is still looking for a space. So if anybody happens to know of a space for her, she's no longer representing farmers, but she is acting as an insurance broker. So that's all I have from the Chamber of Commerce. There were a lot of questions about the Main Street program, which Kim Mitchell was able to answer via email. They were talking about, could the Town of Lyons possibly staff a visitor center at the front office of A-Launch? So that's an option, depending on whether we want it on Main Street going up towards Estes Park. And they were also interested in selling beer at the Sandstone Concert Series because they've lost their biggest fundraiser, which was selling beer at Good Old Days. So apparently they raise $10,000 every year with that. And they're curious as to whether they can sell beer at the Sandstone Concert Series. So that was the discussion for the first meeting of the year. Any questions?
Any questions for Trustee Dottie?
Okay, that's it. That's all. I'll see you on Saturday.
Thank you.
We need to post that as a public meeting. No, are you guys all attending this Saturday? This summit housing information. Okay, so see you Saturday.
I thought she was talking about the retreat. Got it. Okay.
Are there
Mayor,
3 attending? I mean, it's not whether all of you, it's whether 3 are.
yeah, is anybody planning on attending the summit informational meeting? Trustee Dottie? Okay, so that it is not a public meeting.
Okay.
If that changes, please
Let us know.
let Victoria know so they can notice it. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
Hi, yes, okay, so not a lot to report from a PCDC standpoint. They're working on their priorities. And then I was just gonna segue right into, please have your commissions have their priorities list done, and preferably to Administrator Simonson by the 28th, if possible. And the March 4th retreat that we are going to have, I just put a note only that I guess Mayor Rogan, Administrator Simonson, and I guess we should probably sit down and come up with an outline of our agenda so that that can be posted. And then I have a request to follow up on a discussion that we have had where we do dry camping with Parks and Rec. I would love it if we could get something perhaps from Dave Crossgrove with some sort of an outline or from the Parks and Rec Commission. And ideally, perhaps we could get something in place by Memorial Day weekend, some kind of a program set up. So maybe if we could sometime in March, get some kind of a presentation of some ideas of what needs to be done or any hurdles that we need to overcome. Off the top of my head, I don't think it should be significant as long as we've got the pay kiosks set up. Then it's just a matter of advertising it perhaps. So anyway, I would love to see that started. We could start getting some revenue this whole summer. That's all I have.
Yeah, I think trustee Dati has a question.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to clarify. Did you say that you needed that list of priorities for each commission by the end of the month? Is that what you said?
The 28th of this month. So a week from today would be ideal.
You'd like to receive them by email as opposed to us showing up with them at the retreat?
It would be nice, if possible, because then we could put it all into a packet.
Okay. Okay. Are we sending them to you, staff?
Administrator or both would be fine. Administrator Simonson, would that be okay with you?
Sure, except I'm concerned that most commissions aren't meeting in the next 7 months.
I understand. Yeah, no, I hear you. I understand, but this is something that we've asked for over a month now. So hopefully we'll get as much as possible.
Even if there's some that were already identified, you know, as part of your end of year planning, that would be good.
Yep, agree.
Trustee Dominic.
So in the Parks and Rec, one things they talked about was possibility of getting a Nordic track around Horn Park. And just being able to.
Skate speed. That's what the 10 on lot app is for. Really? Yeah, that's why it says figuring on it. Beyond the dog park is for Nordic tracks. Cross country all the time, people go there. Country school thing. But I mean, if you want them to look somewhere else, you can. But it's already mowed down for that at the end of the season.
Another thing that we're talking about is trying to see if they can get funding for the chiller for the ice rink. And then trying to get some family outdoor programs going in the parks. For that. Another thing, kind of outside of Parks and Rec was I've been met with Administrator Simonson and been talking to some people about trying to get a community garden, or community orchard. Invitations for that, and there's some community support.
Thank you. Any questions for trustee Dominic?
When you mean community garden, we do have that one botanical garden, which you mean where like everybody gets a plot and then you can go work your plot and stuff.
Right, yeah.
We've done that in the past, right? We did that about 10 years ago, but I think it's been, what happened to it?
It got destroyed.
Oh, that was,
Yes. We haven't had it for 10 years.
okay, we haven't had it since, but right. Yeah, I think the big problem is there was no water.
We had some water. We had diverging philosophies on the gardening taking place there. Some people wanted only organic, some wanted no-till. And we, through the Dr. Bob plan, after the flood, we really examined where's the most appropriate place for it, and they identified 2 sites in town, and we left a water tap on those 2 sites. That's not necessarily where these groups want to be. So if that changes, that Dr. Bob plan was actually adopted by resolution. So there were 28 buyout lots. Some of those were identified as leasable by the neighbors if they were in between 2 homes. And then some of the other larger areas, like 3rd and Park, like the Botanic Gardens, were identified for community-wide uses. And so that's some of the lots that trustee Delman is referring to. However, he is wanting to pursue putting the orchard on the lot that wasn't identified for an orchard. So we would need to know if the board's interested in listening to a proposal and reopening that. All of the things you mentioned tonight from Parks and Rec, I wish they would have brought those up in the fall so we could have budgeted. But all of those would take a budget adjustment, I believe, or wait until next year. Other ones you mentioned. What happened to their other priorities, like the small dog park and they had like 4 or 5 priorities before.
I think most of the priorities were with the trails that Director Cosgrove brought up with us a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
Kind of little add-ons that they were just discussing.
So you'll work with Director Cosgrove if he could fit those into his current budget. This is the reason we set those priorities, because we get so splintered. I just heard EBC with several more priorities, and I'm hearing PRC. All the different groups come forward with 2 or 3 more things, and we end up with like 15 or 20 new priorities. So that's part of, I think, what we're going to talk about at our retreat is how do we pick those and stick with them so we can get some of them done instead of starting down one path and then changing gears. So totally up to the board how you want to handle this. If Trustee Dillman wants to bring forward the Dr. Bot and reopen it, that was all vetted, those properties by all the neighbors of what was going to go where. So it'll take a little work, not that it can't be done, but we as staff have some concerns because the community farm that started had really good volunteer effort when it first started. I think they had 80 or 90. Nothing has happened in the last couple of years. And so now we have a lot full of materials and no one to work it. So there's lots of things to think about here. And it's whether or not the board wants to have a discussion on this, which is what you're asking, to reopen that up.
Yeah, my feeling would be Trustee Dillman, maybe go back to the PRC and explain the situation. They may not have an understanding of the Dr. Rob process and, maybe just see if we can continue the discussion with them.
That sounds good. And I actually brought this up to them. I was approached by someone from the EAB about that. And so they were trying to get some community support, and I brought up to PRC, and so it's one of the next couple things.
Thank you.
Mine will be very short. The UED did not meet the 15th, at least they're working on the agenda, so I didn't know. Do you have anything from the UED?
We didn't, the next one will be the first. We have the presentation at the next workshop also from.
Yes.
From what will happen.
All right, yeah, so we have a presentation at the next workshop, and this is going to be about the
Frontier Resources Bridge.
okay, and this is about the battery, right?
Well,
Okay, that's
part
what
of
we're
it.
doing. So let's pay attention. And I don't have anything to speak advisory committee, but one other thing. Can we still try to get a timeline of all the construction projects?
We're working on it. We're revising the website. So.
Perfect. Okay. Because I still talk to people who still don't understand all that's going to be happening. So, I try to think.
Thank you. I take it there's no questions for us. All right. Mr. Yeltsin.
All right, the EAB met tonight, papers before us, so I'm going to take the next thing. The SFC, we actually had a great presentation from Sun Solar United Neighbors, which is a company that's working on solar co-op. So we're working through Bolton County. They need to get at least 30 members. They want to get the co-op. With the co-op, they get the lowest rates for installations and the best rates. It doesn't have to be 30 houses in Lyons, just a Bolton County. So they're going to be promoting that. So it was a really big presentation. And actually, they have 2 great suggestions. Some of them we already do for getting new commission members. They're looking for zoning. So they suggested that maybe in the town e-blast or utility flyer, put a highlight of one of the commissions each time. Or periodically, they're looking for people, like their purpose, key projects within this field. Maybe get people who want. A second suggestion they had was that the town host a commission open house daily. Each commission will either present verbally or be opposed to its purpose and keep plan the context.
The science fair for commission.
Kind of, yes. Kind of new ways to get rid of.
That's great, thank you. Any questions for trustee Elson?
Comment
Yes, you may.
on the solar.
Can you use your microphone?
Just so you all know, for the solar co-op, there will be an agenda item on the next agenda to talk about supporting what Boulder County wants. We will be looking at it at March 1st meeting.
Thank you. Trustee Williams.
HPC did not have a quorum at this time. And I would like to see the board consider that whether or not we need to be approving this.
Let's get that on the agenda, please.
The March 23rd, or no, March 23rd is St. Rain spring break. Right. I think a lot of people are going to spring break. So, I don't know if we want to do that.
That's our regular board meeting, correct? So we're not going to change it because it's not a holiday. This is a good opportunity to remind people that, according, and Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong, but according to the policy we adopted when we were first seated, each trustee can have up to 4 virtual meetings.
And they must ask for permission, yeah.
So just keep that in mind. Yeah. Okay. Any questions for trustee Williams? All right.
Let us know sooner than later if you don't plan to be here.
Yeah.
Or join virtually so that we'll know if we have a quorum.
Yeah, I mean, you can't miss a meeting that's,
Well, but you have several with children.
Well, I know. I couldn't,
My youngest child is 42.
Well, and I think, Victoria, thank you for saying that. But yeah, as soon as you're gonna either be virtual or miss a meeting, please let us know. Trustee Dottie?
Yeah, I didn't realize that there had been a number that had been decided upon. I thought that hybrid was always an option. So did you say that there are only 4 virtual meetings allowed?
We all agreed on this policy. We voted on this policy back in May, I want to say. It was soon after we were seated. And so, and I don't have it in front of me, but it's 4. And then if you need more, ask. But I think that, the purpose is to have us in the room as much as we can, since we can.
Okay, well, thank you for that reminder. I think I might already be at my limit. I don't know who's tracking that, but I think we need to review that.
I mean, it's kind of, yeah, it's on your honor,
Mhm.
So we would have started over in January. If it's
So
for a year.
just remind me, 4 virtual meetings, and how many meetings can we actually be absent for?
What does the code say on that?
There's 3, if you miss 3 in a row, then
3 in a row.
then you're termed absent and your seat will be filled via an election.
Okay, thank you.
And I did just pull up the policy. It was done in May 16th of 2022.
Yeah, can you just send that out to everybody, Brandon?
Yeah, and actually, this is the remote rules of decorum, but I know the attendance one is also around here somewhere, so I'll find it.
Great, thank you. Okay, so my report, unfortunately, I had to miss the LAHC meeting. It's the last minute thing, so I will catch up with them. I reached out to the chair and she said, pretty much everything's full. I don't know whether we're going to have our priorities, Mayor Pro Tem, in a week, but I will do my best. So Mayor Pro Tem and I went on a field trip to Jamestown Zach met us there, and we met Ken Lanier, who was the mayor of Jamestown for something like 19 years. They don't have term limits there. And he took us on a great tour of their fire mitigation program and some properties that are being mitigated, and the way it works in Jamestown. And Mayor Pro Tem, please correct me if I get any of this incorrect. Is it's funded by Left-Hand Water District. And the fire district has the professionals who do the mitigation and the chipper. And so what they did was identify properties in town, within town limits of Jamestown, that needed mitigation work. Went to talk to the owners of those properties about what mitigation work needed to be done. So they would like tie, string around trees they want to take down, and then the property owner would agree or not. But essentially these property owners are getting the tens of thousands of dollars of tree work for free. And the crew left, they'll like leave the wood if you want the wood to burn for fuel, or they'll chip it and take it away. But it's been highly, highly successful. So I would love it if we could look at a similar model. I'm not sure exactly how that would work for Lions, but working with the fire district and the water district, trying to find some funding to make all those gears go. Knowing that a lot of the property that has been determined to be number one on the fire mitigation risk is not personal private property. But I think that we can make some headway with that moral partnership. So it was really interesting to see. And their town hall is smaller than ours.
Mayor
So-
Rogan?
Yes, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was, if you were moving on, I was going to say I could add a couple of little details. I did find my notes. I was just going to say that they actually mitigated 45 properties of 45 houses in that area, which I think was an exceptionally high number and pretty fantastic. They got a grant with the Left-Hand Water Conservation District. So they went through them to get the money to pay for this mitigation, which I thought was really interesting. And kind of felt like maybe one idea came up is that we could perhaps do a workshop with the fire department and Left-Hand Water Conservation District to find out from them this model and this financial model, and see if we can come up with a way to maybe help write a grant, move forward, create a plan, something along those lines. And then we can just get out of the way and let the fire department go to town.
Last comment now. Why don't you come in, James? Sure. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, so I attended the Dr. Cog meeting. Thankfully, they went virtual. So it always seems they're in downtown Denver, and so it's always nice when it decides to snow on the third Wednesday. And one of the things that Dr. Cog does is take positions on legislative issues. And so I know that we have CML to, they lobby for us legislatively. However, there are some legislative issues that I think we as a board may want to take a look at. One of them is rent control, which just passed out of committee. It's going to have an effect on us. And the other one is being called Schrodinger's zoning bill, the bill that does and does not exist.
Yeah.
So I know Brandon's heard this joke before, but there's rumor that there will be a bill that will remove all zoning in the state of Colorado. And CML is taking a strong stance against this because it removes local control. A lot of arguments are being made against it. It's like, well, you remove all the zoning in Lyons and then you're going to get a bunch of huge apartment buildings, and where's the water going to come? And there's no guarantee of affordability. And I don't want to get into that. But so this is to say that we should be paying attention to legislative issues. We should feel free to go and testify in front at the State House. And I also, this is a great time to remind everybody that our state senator, Janice Marchman, is doing a town hall on the 28th at 5 o'clock at the library. And she will be able to answer all of your legislative questions. Reminder about the blood drive. If you haven't signed up.
It is filled, but they said they will accept walk-ins.
I'm going to 11:30 if anybody wants to do the. And then I think Victoria, you might be talking about this, but the settlement money from the gas bill. Yeah, so, so any questions?
Seriously, a bill to eliminate all zoning rules.
That is correct.
Do we have a governor that would do that?
My understanding is that the governor just requested it.
What was that? Sorry.
I said my understanding is that it's something the governor requested. I'm not 100% certain of that, but
The zoning bill?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of zoning bills are out there, including the one you're speaking of. They're coming from a lot of different places, you know, primarily from the idea that, well, if we just took away low control, then we could, you know, do more affordable housing. This is some proponents' thought on this. But obviously fraught with peril. I know, speaking to Robert Sheasley, attorney at CML last week about a different issue. He's like, just, you know, be prepared for the worst potentially to come out on these zoning and land use generally bills. I don't know. I don't think the governor, I didn't hear the governor's, but it could be, maybe there's a competing bill the governor's pushing. So I don't know.
And I could certainly be wrong about that.
Yeah.
So
I know there's a lot, but it was what I was told. So there's,
this would be great questions for Senator Marchman.
yeah.
I have a question about that town hall with Janice Marchman.
Yeah.
So if there are more than two of us who are planning on going, and I do plan on going, do we need to post a public notice?
If we know in advance, if it's just a chance that people show up and you're not talking about public business, then it doesn't need to be posted. Chance encounters are accepted, but for example, like the summit thing earlier, if we know we're going to a public event and most people are going to be speaking or participating, then we probably should. But if it's just, you know, we don't know now whether most people are going and people just happen to go there and listen, then that doesn't necessarily need to be posted. But if we know in advance, it's great too.
I know I'll be there. So, is there a third who knows they'll be there? No? Okay.
Strong chance.
Yeah. Mayor Pro Tem will be, so we'll notice it as a public meeting. Thank you. All right, administrators report.
Thank you. As follow-up to the discussion regarding the Jamestown model with the left-hand water conservancy district. You want to give me an update on that?
Sure, I could, just because we have had a couple of meetings over at least the past 6 months or so with Left Hand St. Vrain Water Conservancy District on what we could get funded, what kind of funding we could do. One of them is that the wildfire is on the list of how we might make that work. Definitely take some conversations with the fire department, also getting my own report back from Zach and him being there and the idea of the wood chipper. I had heard that the town owned, that Jamestown owned the wood chipper and the fire department. Oh, okay.
The fire department.
They did buy their own wood chipper.
Am I right, Mayor Pro Tem? Yeah, no, Jamestown did not buy a chipper.
Okay, that's good to know. That's not what I would. So, right, it'd be, again, that's even more conversation with the fire department on what they would do, what their commitments might be. We're also then looking at the Martin parcel. I did just get a report back that Chief Zig did get a cost estimate of $20,000 for the doing the. Yeah, no, it's to actually do the slash pile, the burn piles. Yeah, the burn portion of it. So I thought that was the estimate we were looking for, was what it would cost for Left Hand mitigation to come out and do the potential potential burns of put together slash piles of dead wood and those two type of trees that were documented as being invasive trees there.
But you said you need to get clarification if that's just the burn by the fire department, or is that volunteers or paying someone to put the splash piles together? That's the hard work.
Right.
I mean, that's all hard work, and that's the really intensive labor work is putting on.
And the third one was, they're working on the stream bank that is just north of the Lion Valley Townhomes, the two properties that were created in place of the park fee that we allow the Summit Development Group instead of paying the park fee that they would give us the two properties. So that's the last portion of stream bank that has not been mitigated. So we get an estimate, a cost estimate and a design put together. And I'm supposed to meet later this week with Left Hand specifically on that one. So we may try to bring up some of the others and get an update on those also.
Any questions for Aaron? Victoria, before you go ahead, I forgot one thing, and that is, I sat in on a watershed center board meeting today, and they have made a seat for the town of Lyons in the watershed center, which is a big deal. We still have to decide who that person will be, but having town of Lyons representation on that board is making a huge difference in this for watershed and the health of our rivers. Sorry, please.
Are those the same groups?
No, Left Hand Water Conservancy District and the watershed. No,
Well, okay, because you guys referred to it as the Left Hand Watershed Center.
Oh, yeah, no, when we're talking about Jamestown, it's left hand.
It's Sean Cronin's group.
Yes.
Okay, I did write that down.
Okay.
So we are
Sorry
working with
about
them and said, well, we've been meeting with Jenny McCarthy and Sean on different projects and how to fund them. I guess we could go back and talk about what would it take to put together a similar model to what Jersey has.
Right, that's the three I updated out with Left Hand.
Sorry for that.
There's two water groups.
They sound alike.
But the seat is with Jesse's group on the water.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Just make sure we're on the same page. All right. So anyway, my administrator's report was included in your packet. So you may have read that and have the detail you want, but I was asked to give a quick update on what's going on with Shady Lane. I want you to know we're meeting regularly with Boulder County staff on that situation and trying to work together to come up with a resident meeting to see what the people who are living there are wanting before we move too far forward. But just to reassure everyone, we have been meeting monthly, and I'm reaching out to the owner again this week to talk with him about his plans for the area to see if those have changed over the last few years. There was also several community development updates, potential annexation. We have met with Stephen Tebow's representatives regarding the property he owns at the junction of 3666. They are putting together some pretty serious plans at this point, and we're anticipating those coming forward here, hopefully in the next month or two. So that is something that we'll work into maybe our discussion on marijuana as well, because if he annexes, then we're going to go to properties somewhat what they call an overlay. And if so, our current code only allows 3 marijuana facilities. And so then we'll be bringing forward some options for the board to consider regarding that, if that happens. Because they've talked about annexing as well. Also, we had a group that is an outdoor focused wellness-based hotelier that is met with us a couple of times. They're looking at different siting options for themselves. And they seem to be fairly serious as well. I think we've met 3 times. So we find little niches that got this possibilities. Also the Forsbergs, who own Lions Crest up on Indian Lookout, are also looking at some land use planning efforts. So we're working with them on options
of what that property can be based on how that was annexed in, but it doesn't have sewer or water from the town. That's a unique potential. Like every parcel unique. We say that all the time. I do want to make the board aware and see if there's any concerns. The planning commission made a decision, they voted unanimously to move their meeting times from the opposite Mondays of you at 7 p.m. to 6 p.m. And they voted unanimously, and I don't know if it should have gone to the board first or not, that they can have a hybrid or a virtual model all the time. And I don't know if the board wants to provide that guidance. They're also asking if they can start meeting at the library instead of using this room. And so if there's concerns there, I'd like to hear from the board. The clerk and I talked about it. We think really the biggest issue is this room is set up with the microphones, the recording, and the audio. Other than that, the attorney is saying there's really no reason they can't, as long as it's a publicly ADA accessible space. They could meet at the library if they wanted to. I don't know how you feel, because this might set a precedence for everyone going virtual. Is that something you want to have happen, not want to have happen? Maybe we can talk about it.
Administrator Simonson, the only thing I would add to that, if they're gonna do all their meetings virtual, then they need to have the ability to host a Zoom as well. So.
And their meetings are public, and I think, yeah, let's talk about this at the retreat, and I think let's talk about an umbrella policy for all boards and committees. I mean, we have our own policy, which, thank you for saying that, Brandon. My mistake was 6 virtual meetings a year, which is 25%, not 4. So this might bring up the topic, and I'm sure that Mayor Pro Tem was involved at the planning commission of this. But again, you know, maybe there's things like this you should be bringing up in your setting, so that because this could then set a precedent that everybody goes virtual. You guys might not want engagement, and we need to maybe change policy to do that. So they already voted on it. Can the board make policy that affects all boards and commissions? Do we have that ability? So can we, for example, if we decide so we adopted this remote meeting policy, and we would like all of the boards and commissions to adopt the same policy. Is that possible?
I think it already applies to all boards and commissions and committees. It doesn't say location, but it already is applicable according to the very top line. It means the town's boards, the trustees, boards, commissions, and committees shall be included in this policy. So.
I know, I don't think we sent any messaging. So I just, again, when we start meeting with our board chairs and you as a group, I would prefer that that direction comes from you guys downward versus finding out after the fact. Because we do need to figure out now how's the audience going to be represented on a recorded system if there's no microphones to capture.
Yeah, that's, I mean, if it, you know, something as consequential as the PCDC, I think should be in the border. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I just want to make sure there's some clarification that, I mean, they all definitely would like to have 6 o'clock instead of 7 o'clock. But I think, I mean, they voted that they would like to have the hybrid option. They're requesting if it could be in the library. I don't think that they felt like that was something that needed to come to the Board of Trustees as a decision. So I don't think it was such a vote that it made it set in stone, and we can't change that or give different direction. I think it was more of, this is the direction we'd like to go. Hey, is that okay? So, but I'm hearing it sounds like there might be an assumption that they've made their mind up and there's no changing it. That's not the case.
The notes show that it was unanimously voted on that the meetings would go to 6, which is fine. The code does not say that they can't do that. And that it will be hybrid, in-person, virtual format. And then they're checking the possibility of the library.
Right. that's their wish. I mean, honestly, though, if you guys came back and said no, then that would be fine too. I don't think they feel like that was what they unanimously was hoping for. I guess is the way I'd rather say it. That's the intent.
Not if it happens, doesn't matter to me. I think it's more of a process and how do we handle these things? So the board and staff aren't finding out afterwards and, versus bringing it to this meeting and saying, hey, what do we think about?
Well, and quite honestly, other boards and commissions meet in the library.
Sure.
Or maybe virtual, but I think that the nature of the PCDC is different in that it can be quasi-judicial. And so, my feeling is it should remain in the boardroom with all of the necessary AV equipment and microphones and ability to host the public.
I would agree. I think when they do a public hearing, it should be in this room, but they can do workshops in the library. As a PCDC, we did workshops and all kinds of things. So that's not a problem, but I do think you're absolutely right. Public hearing should probably be here.
That was just an update from community development. We are planning a large FEMA Region 8 tour of Lions on March 1st, next Wednesday. As you guys know, Tracy is working diligently to try to close out all of those projects with the feds. And so they have decided, instead of trying to do this virtually and by email, they're going to send their whole team here. And we're going to spend the day touring, trying to better understand the projects, because it's very difficult when you read some minor detail about a bridge or understanding what is stream bank armoring if you're sitting in an office and dinner. So we thought we're going to send like this team of 6 people. He said, no, I'm inviting our whole Region 8, which is Montana, Colorado, Utah, Arizona. So there's going to be 30 Region 8 FEMA people here next Wednesday. And so now we have to figure out logistics. It's going to be interesting. But they just said that they think that will be the most efficient way for our closeout staff to see the projects, talk to Tracy, as well as he said, we want to show off to the rest of the region how well a small town can do this. So we'll be hosting that next Wednesday. So it'll be an interesting trip on how to transport 30 people around town efficiently. And then, as the mayor alluded to, there was, we have not been notified directly yet, but it's our understanding that the Colorado Attorney General's office has come to a resolution with the trucking company called MTY Trucking that caused the gasoline spill into the river back in April of 21. And that there is a settlement claim of $245,000 that is supposed to be between Lions and the state. And it says that they will be reaching out to us. That's the part that hasn't happened yet. They will be reaching out to us to discuss how those funds will be appropriated and how they can be used. But right now it says they are to be used to, there's a list, there's a few things here. It can be used. It's basically to what you would think, to repair any damages, to enhance ecological health of the river and things like that. So I know the ecology board said they were going to talk about it tonight already. It's like, we better wait and find out what it involves. But
You should see the report.
yeah, we haven't seen any of this. They also did some other settlements with some other agencies, but this one hopefully will have a fairly significant financial impact to us to do some work here at home. So that's exciting. And Crystal wanted me to give you the update on the avian flu There are 41 geese, 5 ducks, we've increased in one trip. But we continue to monitor that. We do try to come to you when we want to request going for grants. The EDC and the staff would like to apply for a $20,000 Colorado tourism grant to continue with our wayfinding efforts, if that works for everyone. Also, our staff attended in regard to historic preservation, the annual Saving Places Conference. It was held in Boulder this year, and we got to go there for 3 days. So I'll be eager to hear what they bring back on that. And we are finalizing plans for the distribution of the bear-proof trash cans that have been being worked on for a couple of years. And there's a specific methodology that county wants to see. So we're working on that with them. Questions? Oh, finance. Sorry, finance. In your packet also was the finance update. Is Cassie? Oh, she's still out there. Basically, Cassie has the preliminary year-end numbers for 2022. Those, of course, again, were in your packet. Sales tax remained very, very comparable to last year, but we ended the year 7.8% higher than budgeted, which equals $128,000 more than the 5% thing that we budgeted for. And last quarter sales tax receipts slows down like it always does. And we saw the shift of local sales tax increasing higher than non-local this month, which is fairly typical too. It's for December sales collected in February. So that's good to see. People shop local. And Cassie, I'm not doing a full presentation like you would, but overall revenue to budget, in regard to revenue, budget to actual, revenue received in 2022 exceeded the budget projections in all funds, which is a good thing. And in expenses, expenditures were lower than budgeted in the funds except Parks and Rec. But it was planned for, and we used some reserves there. And stormwater, which was due to the Long Peak project, $18,000, not significant. So our audit preparation has already started for this year. We're going to try to get that done much sooner than we have the last year. And Cassie will be presenting in your packet if you want to look at the details, the final year end, but overall, pretty well within what we planned. Cassie, you're not expecting to have to do any budget adjustments at this point.
No, I don't think so. It's after the fact, and 18,000 from stormwater isn't significant. It'll be reported in the audit, and I don't expect any follow-up after that. But we will have rollover funds as well that will roll over into 2023 for like wildfire mitigation and unspent capital dollars that will roll into 2023. And I'll have a list of those types of things as well. So we'll do a budget amendment for 2023 later on this year.
Any questions for Cassie or for Mr. Simpson? Thank you. Legal update.
I think you already heard enough from me during executive session today, so nothing further.
Anything new on Bonita Yoder?
Nothing new to report on Bandy Yoder, no.
She did
Yeah.
submit.
She said, well, on my end, yeah. Go ahead.
She has submitted the initial building permit application, which looks good had an engineer doing the work on it. She doesn't have a contractor lined up yet. So right now the deadline is the end of this month, supposed to be mitigated. So I suppose it's going to be coming back to say, are we going to grant an extension if, again, she shows she has a contractor lined up and says she's given it done.
Sure, we did with the contractor.
So there you go.
No, this last week he said, would you entertain an
No,
extension?
that was Don. Yeah, that was the engineer.
No.
Thank you. All right, summary of action items, please.
Yes. Item 1 is a potential special meeting with Leaf and their executives. I'm sorry, what?
I don't think you.
Can you hear me?
We can
Yeah.
hear you.
Item 2 is a potential workshop at the next meeting to cover leaf options. Item 3 is there was a request for extra patrol on Evans Street. Items 4 is ordinance 1141 moved to second reading. Item 5 is a future agenda item for a traffic study on Railroad and Evans this summer. Item 6 is to research Google on how to change directions and navigations. I don't know how we're going to figure that out.
I've already looked
items-
into it a bit, so.
Is move forward with Railroad option 3 previously selected and research the option presented by staff tonight and bring back feedback. And then plan for traffic study this summer. Item 8 is to draft an ordinance to raise the marijuana tax to up to 5% pending outreach and feedback. And would like to see additional outreach to marijuana businesses regarding the tax increase. Item 9 is a dry camping outline from Parks and Rec or Director Cosgrove. Item 10, revisit if Board of Trustees needs to approve conditional use for ADUs. Item 11, I need to notice Senator Marchman's open house. Item 12 is the board will need to decide representation on the new seat on the Watershed Center Board. And item 13 is the board is to discuss an umbrella meeting policy for boards and commissions at the retreat on March 4th.
I have a couple more, but they're more internal, I believe, other than I do have, do we want to survey the community on where they're giving healthcare? That was brought up. But not really, I have that written down as a potential follow-up. Making sure we get that timeline for projects on our town website. And consider the 2 commission recommendations from the SFC. And the legislative issues coming in.
I think trustee Doxby, was it that the Housing and Human Services Commission wanted to do a survey, or was it that they wanted staff to do a survey? And is it even appropriate for a commission to do a survey?
Right. I think the discussion was, should we survey the community to determine where people are going for their medical services?
Not who should do.
They just need to work with communication staff and myself, so we're not, using the tools we have.
Gotcha. Okay. Great. Thank you. Attorney Gittman, anything else?
Draft the lease for the Leaf property if we get the right direction. And then I think the marijuana increase is a resolution on ordinance, I believe.
It's by ordinance. I looked it up.
Okay, good. You looked it up. Okay. Thanks.
All right, well, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? No? Okay. We'll vote.
Good night. Happy Mardi Gras.
Favor, thank you.
That Tuesday. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.